This week in PlayStation, we're talking about PlayStation getting serious about mobile again. PlayStation Plus's latest crop of games, and The Last of Us Part 1 versus The Last of Us Part 2. We'll have all this and more because this is PS I Love You XOXO. Welcome to the show, everybody. That's Blessing. That's Janet. I'm Greg, and you can get the show on patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames. There you can watch us record it live, get it ad-free, and get the weekly post show. If you have no bucks to toss our way, support us on the Epic Game Store, Fortnite, Rocket League, and or Rumbleverse with the creator code KindaFunny. You can get PS I Love You XOXO for free with ads and without the post show on youtube.com/KindaFunnyGames, Rooster Teeth, and of course, podcast services around the globe. Thank you to our Patreon producers, Fargo Brady, Delaney Twinning, James Hastings, Casey Andrew. Today, we're brought to you by ExpressVPN and Chime, but let's start with a PSN message from you. First off, Janet and Blessing, it does me well to be on the same Discord call as you. It's been too long.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I missed you guys.
Blessing, you've been holding it down. You know what I mean? You've been here making the show happen. I appreciate that.
I'm gonna say, listen, the last two weeks of PS I Love You XOXO has been fantastic, and that's not to say it's because you've been gone, Greg, but I feel like
I blame
that is
myself.
the common
I blame
factor.
myself for sure.
No, it's mainly because Sancho West, when talking about The Last of Us, there's nobody I'd rather talk to about The Last of Us than Sancho, because he is the same as me in terms of having a love for factions. And so I get to just sit back and nerd out with this other person who is also as broken as I am and just talk about how great factions is and talk about like the future of The Last of Us and the franchise. And with somebody who's thinking about all the multiplayer stuff the same way that I'm thinking about it, in terms of, oh yeah, what do they do with survival? Oh yeah, what can the battle royale look like? Oh yeah, like let's get fucking real nerdy about that shit. Then of course the week before that, right, was me and Janet. What were we talking about? Because it was a good conversation.
Oh, that's a great question.
It was a PlayStation Showcase.
Yes.
Yeah,
it was
that was a really fun one.
It was our wish list episode. I will say, as cool as it was for you to have that Last of Us episode, I do wish that you have just done Blessing featuring Blessing, and it would have been like a TI versus TIP kind of episode that's just unhinged, you talking to yourself. But that other one was good too.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Greg, do you understand the TI versus TIP reference?
Oh, sure. Of course I don't. No, I've got not a chance.
Gotcha. This rapper T.I.
What do they call him, Janet?
He's been the king of the South. Yeah, he's a very prolific actor. Exactly.
Yeah, I know T.I. from the movies.
You may know him from his acting.
I believe he was in Ant-Man.
He was in Ant-Man. Yeah.
I don't think he was in Ant-Man 2 though, right?
No, I think he was. I remember him.
I thought it was the thing he didn't make the jump.
Oh, maybe not.
But maybe I'm wrong.
I could have sworn he was, but I guess I wasn't really looking out for T.I.
They had Polka Dot Man in Ant-Man 2.
And they had homie Louise.
Yeah, who does the recaps. That's funny. Yeah.
No T.I. in Ant-Man 2. No T.I.
No T.I.
Thank you very much.
Wow.
All right. You're going to make fun of me for not knowing T.I. versus T.I. You don't know Ant-Man 2, Blessing. That's pretty embarrassing for you.
You might know the song from T.I., Live Your Life, featuring Rihanna.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
and don't go chasing the papers.
Yeah.
Now, see, that's interesting that would be...
No. You're wrong to you're wrong. T.I. was in Ant-Man 2.
Yeah, fuck you guys. Yeah, I'm the host now. I'm taking over the show. What's up, everybody?
See, it's interesting
this is
that
like
would
when you said you'd be CEO and it got really scary. I don't know if I want to go back here.
This is like the last post show that me and Janet did, where like I quoted 8 Mile and Janet was like, "You're an idiot. You get that's fucking wrong. This is why we make fun of you all the time." And then she realized that she was wrong.
Yep, and I was wrong.
Let's a post show though, so nobody saw it, so it didn't count. Don't worry.
That is true.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
You got to pay for Blessing to be right.
For him to finally get his flowers to be all right. Time for a PSN message from you. We're going to go to Dan Likes Everything, who writes into patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames, just like you can. It says, do you have names/words from games that you mispronounce because they were originally in games without voice acting? For example, I will always pronounce Chocobo as Kokobo because that's just what my dumb kid brain read playing the first few Final Fantasies on SNES. And Suikoden as Suikoden will be for me. And Suikoden is Suikoden for me forever, no matter what the internet says. Janet Garcia, did you ever pronounce something wrong because of just how life is?
Yeah, the number one that came to my mind is just like all these freaking Pokemon names, man. And one that's like Gen 1, so you would think everyone knows how to say it, is Ponyta. I would say
Ponita?
Ponita. I would say Ponita. It's Ponita, which is not that big of a
Ponita.
difference, but it is just a big enough of a difference for everyone on YouTube to be like,
Yeah.
actually, forget these tips about Sword and Shield. You don't know how to say this horse's name. And I'm like, I don't know. I thought I knew it to the point where I didn't double check, because behind the scenes, actually, I'm double checking a lot of that VO stuff. That also, we ran into that problem a lot when a new Pokemon game comes out, because it comes out before the TV show pronunciation hits.
Yep.
So we're just like using that phonics and doing our best.
For me, the one I put down here, and there's obviously a gajillion, but for me, the one that always stands out is Luminous, which I called Lumines for the longest time, because I, of course, was, a devout EGM and 1UP reader. And so I'd see Crispin and Jen and all of them writing about how great Luminous was and how they were playing it and how stoked they were for it and yada, yada, yada. And so, I grabbed it and picked it up, and I was just always talking about Lumines this and Lumines that and yada. And I mean, this isn't me as a dumb kid. This is just me as a dumb college kid. But it wasn't, the era of, there's the 1UP show, and there was like GameScoop starting around this time. But it wasn't so chock full of podcasts that everyone was talking about these PSP games that you could go find any niche little thing you wanted. And so I remember getting to IGN and having a conversation at some point and saying something about Lumines, and be like, "Are you saying Luminous? Like illumination, like lights?" And like, oh fuck, that makes a lot of sense. Shit, I'm stupid.
I think I had the same thing. Whenever I would read about Luminous on the internet, it was in my mind. It was always Lumines.
Yeah. That's the stuff that's hard to get out once it gets in there, and that's just how you pronounce it. Similar to what Dan's saying here of Kokobo and Sukoden.
Well, like, I think both of those are ones. At least Luminous is one where if you read it upon first read, I can't imagine anybody getting that right. There's no way you're getting that on first attempt. Suikoden, I imagine, like, maybe if you're a Japanese speaker or you're more familiar with the language, you might get that one right. But as a dumb American, I see that, and I think I had the same thing where I would always read it as Suikoden until I heard Jared Petty talk about it on a podcast, and I was like, oh, Suikoden. That's actually a cool way to say it.
And it's possible too that Jared Petty just tricked us all. He might have come in so confident, and he has such a background in Japan and Japanese that he might have just been like, "This is how." We would never second guess that. That's just how it is.
Yeah. For me, the one I go to is Eco, which for the longest time I always went back and forth between Eco and Ico. I probably started off by calling it Ico. And that was one that I think was beaten out of me by listening to podcasts and hearing other people pronounce it and going, all right, cool, I guess that's the way it's pronounced. But another one that comes to mind is Deus Ex. Where,
Deus Ex.
That was one where, I think I started to become more aware of Deus Ex during the Human Revolution game. Yeah. And because that's where I would see it on GameStop shelves, right? Because the original was a PC game. And I just wouldn't come across it as much. Seeing Human Revolution on shelves, I'd see it, and every single time I'm like, oh, this Deus Ex game looks really cool. But then I started talking to people about it, and I was like, oh, it's pronounced Deus Ex. And there was one time where when I first started trying to pronounce it, where I told a friend about the game, I was like, yo, there's this fire game, like, you got to check it out. It's great. It's called Deus Ex Human Revolution. And they're like, it's called Day of Sex? And I was like, yeah, Deus Ex. Day of Sex? Deus Ex. Yeah. And I couldn't figure out why they thought it was a weird name until I was like, oh, I see what I'm doing here. So now whenever I pronounce it, I feel like I have to put the extra into the pronunciation, go, yeah, Deus Ex Human Revolution is
drop a space in there for sure.
Yeah.
The Deus Ex one, I was aware of in college when they
now
dropped
I can't unhear it. Thanks, Bless.
Deus Ex. Well, I found out about Deus Ex in college, and it was one of those where that one for me, I didn't find out the pronunciation. It was a very similar thing when Deus Ex came back. It got back in the forefront with Human Revolution. But in college, there was my friend across the hall bought it. And it was that thing where he said it Deus Ex, we said it Deus Ex, everyone on our dorm floor or whatever it was called it Deus Ex. Like, it was like a shared delusion, which makes me feel so much better. Not like the
those are the best kinds.
The Lumines that I projected into people's heads. Like, I guess that's what it is.
That's the thing is, there's so many in video games, and I guess in anything, right? There's so many proper nouns, and I think for video games, we're reading a lot, either because there might not be text in a thing, or you're just reading articles about a thing, or maybe you're just not paying attention to a lot of shit that's going on. So there's often times where I mispronounce a proper noun that I don't realize until somebody points it out.
Oh, sure.
I remember and there was actually one that the homie Alex Van Aken put up yesterday, because Game Informer has the God of War cover.
Oh,
I think that's why this person wrote this in.
Yeah, and Alex Van Aken, I guess in the video, pronounced Atreus as Atreus. And I've done the same thing on PS I Love You. And I was like, oh, because me and Alex did OK Beast before he was at Game Informer and I was here. I was like, oh, shit. That must be a shared delusion situation where on OK Beast, we probably called him Atreus the whole time. So we just took that and just carried it on to our separate outlets. And once you say it there, it's like, what the fuck you mean Atreus? You mean Atreus? And I was like, oh. Yeah, I
And
guess that's how the
that-
name's pronounced.
See, that's an interesting one though. And I've sent the tweet here to Barrett. I got to agree with Cody in the comments who says Atreus. How the hell do people still get his name wrong? It's said out loud dozens upon dozens of times in the previous game.
Because like the difference is not that big. I think especially when you say it pretty quickly. So for me, you know, behind the scenes, how do I avoid this small inconvenience of the internet? I'm out here putting the phonics in everything I'm doing to avoid this because I don't remember. So for for Atreus, I literally write A-T-R-A-Y, us. And when I read it in notes, I have it there. Or like, you know, behind the scenes when we were talking about the new God of War game coming up, and there was something from that, like maybe the type of lore. I could not say it, so I just wrote it on a Post-it, and I would just phonetically read it, and then I'd be like, that's how it is, right? As if I'm not desperately trying to sound like I know what I'm talking about. It's just whenever it's stuff that's like any level of fantastical, it's only natural if you like beat it into your mind over and over again. And if you make the mistake of like imprinting the wrong memory, then like that's just gonna be how you say it. And it's so close that like you end up just not really caring. And that's like the Pokemon, like Ponyta. Like it's all just
Pokemon
sounds. Yeah.
How often do they say Atreus in God of War though? Because the whole time Kratos just calls him
about
boy.
to replay it, don't forget. So you'll find out soon.
I just replayed it. He says Atreus all the time.
Damn it. Okay, I was gonna try and get away with like, he just calls him boy most of the time.
Well, the thing is, when you're reading,
maybe if he was a better father, I would know his name pronunciation.
Yeah, but when I read it, I also read it that way. But I had to train myself not to say it correctly. I still don't know whose Bridge of Spirits it is. You know what I mean? Like
that's a great one, actually. Yeah, that we have been correcting. Even the top of the show, this isn't a fantastical name at all. Remember that Delaney Twining recently told us for years we've been mispronouncing his name Twinning. I definitely fell back into old habits and said Twinning at the top, so I apologize, Delaney, for that. And of course, I'm the worst person in the world at saying names, so I'm not throwing shade at anybody. I remember distinctly E3, whatever year it was, but it was our first time interviewing Shu. And it was like a big deal. Like he'd followed us on Twitter, and like it was. I remember Clements freaking out about it. And so on the entire walk over there, it was me, Clements, and Colin. I had written in my notepad, like the word, like just exactly what you're talking about, Janet. Shoe, like spelled out like the shoe you put on your foot. Hey, yo, she, duh. And like the entire way there, Clements was quizzing me over and over again. I was just drilling it into my brain, trying not to fuck it up. And that was before we knew Shuhei was a complete clown, and we could have said whatever, but it doesn't matter. I digress. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, you all should start playing God of War now. We are doing our replay, the PS I Love You re-review of God of War 2018.
Janet, are you like me where you're regretting making this commitment?
No,
I'm right there with you guys. I'm right there in the boat with you and Mimir. Like, why did we do this? It's so busy.
I'm excited that we made this commitment because I need to do this anyway, and I was going to do this anyway, and now I just have content incentives to do this because I've never actually finished it. Like, I started it and then I didn't finish it. But that said, I'll tell you what I told like Barrett on Slack, where I was like, "What's the date on this again?" And he gave me the date, which I already also forgot again. But I was like,
hold on, let me close the thread. Remember, it's coming up Wednesday, September 21st. We will be recording
so soon.
12:50 and it's 1 o'clock. It will be recording Patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames.
So 3 weeks from now. 3 weeks from now.
Thursday.
So
also, that's Poe's birthday, everybody. If you need to remember, it's Poe's 40th birthday. If you want to get him something.
What I had, I'm getting him the credits to God of War. I hope. So, I think you already have this, but at the time that I asked Barrett, not anymore. I was like, this is just enough time to still put this off. We are now past that time, and I'm gonna have to go on quite the run. But
Barrett, what was your clock? How long did it take you on that replay?
Somewhere around 20-ish hours, and I was doing.
That's not too bad.
I was doing a.
Did you do New Game Plus?
No, I was cowered out of New Game Plus for whatever reason. I like to go back to like resetting whenever I go back, and I was doing a good amount of extra stuff as well. So if you want to blaze through it, it's probably even quicker than that.
Blessing, what are you doing over there? You making notes?
I'll be honest. I'm trying to buy some Kendrick Lamar tickets for tonight.
Aren't those gonna be like hella expensive, or like what's the?
I'm trying to get a deal, and I'm trying to talk to a friend because like I'm trying to get them into going to Kendrick. The thing is, the seats aren't great, and like it'll basically be like $100 for each ticket.
That's not too bad.
Where's he
playing?
playing?
Oakland.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and he's playing tonight and tomorrow. And the thing is, right now I have tomorrow off, so I'd love to go tonight so I can go hard and then sleep in tomorrow.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I didn't hear a word you said
brutal.
for the last like 2 minutes, if I'm being honest.
You're okay. Tickets are brutal these days. Like we found out yesterday that Harry Styles is performing on Maggie's birthday, and she's like, "I'd love to go for my birthday." And I was like, "Man, this is not what I'm used to because I haven't gone to like a concert in a long time." I'm like, "This is like, would you like this to be your next 3 birthdays? Because this is what the price point's coming out to."
Yeah, and the friend
rough.
I'm talking to is a friend that recently got her card stolen, and so like, and they spent a bunch of money, and she's still working with her bank to figure that out. So she's like, I can't pay for it, and I'm like, listen, I will pay for you because I just want to go for the experience. I've never seen Kendrick in concert.
He's great.
So yeah, that's what I've heard. I've seen the TikToks of him like.
I got lucky
doing the new tour.
probably not the last non-PlayStation thing, but I got lucky. I saw him for the To Be a Butterfly tour, and he was doing really small venues. So I saw him in a really small venue, and it was actually not expensive at all, and it was dope. I was exhausted.
Did you sit?
No, we were standing. A standing room only.
Damn, that's a no deal.
Yeah.
No
Really?
deal.
Oh, I've actually never sat for a concert.
Michelle Branch
Oh,
was coming through in a
best.
couple weeks, and I was like so excited. And when the pre-sale and like when she announced it, and I went there, and I'm like, the Fillmore. And I was like, Tim, is the Fillmore general admission or do they have tables? He's like, general admission. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to this then. Don't worry about that. I saw her at Slim's last time she came through San Francisco, standing room only. That fucking sucked.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I saw Vanessa Carlton at Great American Music Hall. Got to sit at a table. It was fantastic.
Yes.
I was like, this is the only way to see people.
Before the pandemic, that was the last place I saw the Wonder Years, Greg. And,
Sure.
and not only did you get to sit, but you also got to pre-order a dinner as well.
Yep.
So it was dinner, seats, and watching my favorite pop punk band.
I'll tell you what, we had a whole crew. This is dating ourselves, obviously, because it was pre-pandemic. A whole crew ready to go see Weezer and Green Day. It was me.
my
It was
God.
Lucy It was Lucy James. Poe was going to fly in from
Joey.
Chicago. Well, I was going to leave Joey out. I'm kidding. Joey. There's a whole bunch of people coming. And so we were going to do this whole thing, and then the pandemic hit, and it got super delayed, and then it came back in 2021. And the closer we got, the more, not only was like, we're rushing this getting back from COVID thing, the more I was like, I don't want to go to a concert. Don't I want to?
As we learned, we try to cancel our tickets, and then as we learned,
waited too late.
Kevin was in a private box for that concert.
Yeah, that's Kevin though.
Yeah.
I mean, he's over there eating 1,000 churros, getting wherever he wants. Nobody understands what he's doing. That's a different story. He couldn't bring us with him. You know what I mean? He just had to go do his own.
It was nice to hear that concert from all the way across the city, which was insane.
Yeah. And so if you would have been there, you would have been deaf. I digress. Let's move on, ladies and gentlemen, to topic of the show. It's finally here, ladies and gentlemen. It's the game you've all been waiting to play. You didn't know you could play, and it's time to play. The Last of Us Part 1 is upon us. It'll be out this Friday. Are we posting this? This is Wednesday, right? Are we posting this Thursday? Are we Thursdays or Fridays?
We're Fridays, but we're posting this episode Thursday.
You're
recording it early.
Yeah.
Sure.
We want to be
moved it. I
closer to
wasn't
the
sure
Last
where
of
we
Us
left.
embargo.
Yeah, sure. Works for me. So anyways, it's out on Friday. Our review is up, obviously, on the old youtube.com/KindaFunnyGames and the KindaFunny Gamescast feed. You can watch myself, Blessing, a little bit of Barrett, Paris, and a little bit of Andy talk about The Last of Us Part 1 and all of our thoughts for it. Janet, you didn't get to be on it. So I'm very interested as we delve into this conversation topic, what you're going to think and what you thought of the game in general. Because on the review, Blessing kept doing that thing where he dips his toe into it and pulls it out, dips his toe and pulls it out. And finally it dawned on me, big old light bulb moment. I sent it over here. Topic of PS I Love You is going to be The Last of Us Part 1. And define that however you want. It can be the most modern version. It can be the original. It can be the remastered. It can be the comic book if you want. Last of Us Part 1 versus The Last of Us Part 2. We need to come down with a definitive answer of which game is better. Yes, there's an argument. Could Part 2 work without Part 1? Yada, yada, yada. We're going to get into all that. We've broken it across 5 categories to have an argument about it. But before we do any of that, roller skating, game playing, marathon running, Minnesota jet ski riding, Janet Garcia.
Hell yeah.
What did you think of The Last of Us Part 1 on PlayStation 5? #, game provided by PlayStation. Don't come after us and sue us.
Yes. Always lead with the don't sue us. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Barrett. It's, The Last of Us is still a masterpiece. Spoilers. Yep. It was then, it is now. I actually probably have, I think among the crew, the most recent first playthrough of the game because I beat it the year that Last of Us 2 came out.
For sure, then, yeah.
So, it's very fresh in my mind in terms of that. So it didn't totally light my world on fire. That being said, it was a reminder of there's levels to this game design stuff, and not gonna lie, they brought the heat with Last of Us 1. But again, that's known quantity. I think in terms of what does this remake do, it is obviously inherently the best way to play the game, both in the accessibility, the visuals, the trophies, the fact that you can, all of that stuff makes it the best way to play it. That said, I don't think it's a needed way to play it. There will obviously be people that are like very hardcore into Last of Us, and they're like, I want to replay this just to give me a new way and new incentives to replay it, new platinums, all that stuff. There are other people who are maybe they couldn't play before due to accessibility stuff. But if what I landed on, like talking to my brother who's restarted this game several times, the PS4 version, he's like, I'm partway through the PS4, or should I restart on PS5? I'm like, I think for you, just go on what you're at. You've been dragging your feet for a long time.
Yeah.
You don't need another reason to like have to restart. So again, very specific camp, but I think with a game that's this known, that's been iterated on so many times, we do end up getting into the weeds of that. So it's kind of my high level takeaways, and playing it, as you guys know from my Slack messages, it very much was spot the difference the game, where like I spent the first hour like, there's extra cards on Sarah's headboard. There's crayons on her nightside table. It's 148 in the remake, but it's 203 in the original, And those things I think are fun and cool and extra layers for people that maybe are so hardcore that they're out here playing this game every year. You may notice and really get a kick out of those things. But for someone like me, where I've replayed the beginning a couple times and the whole thing only once through, I wasn't always really appreciating the fact that they put a bottle on this table that moves and then it rolls. Like those little things were a bit lost on me. But overall, Last of Us, still fire. This is the best way to play. Do I wish it was more? Of course, but it's here. The end.
Okay. Good. I'll take it. I'll accept it. Blessing and I are right there with you. I think that's exactly how we felt playing it or whatever. But now for this conversation. To start, we have 5 categories, ladies and gentlemen, where we will go through and argue our points and also bring you in from patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. Thank you so much for writing in, where we will discuss, is Last of Us Part 1 better than Last of Us Part 2 or vice versa? We will be judging them on journey. The journey you take in the game. What does that mean? It's open to interpretation. We'll get there. The gameplay of the games, the characters of the games, the pacing of the games, and the twists of the game. What a twist.
Whoa.
Very twisted.
Blessing, Adeoye Jr.
Greg Miller.
The Last of Us Part 1 versus Last of Us Part 2. Who has the better journey and why?
Who has the better journey?
Yeah,
I'm gonna go
what game?
I'm gonna go Last of Us Part 1. I
Okay.
think the journey is a little bit more clear. It's more succinct, right? Part of the issue I have with Last of Us Part 2, if I'm gonna start off just taking jabs at Last of Us Part 2,
Go
so I
for
can
it.
prop up Part 1. I appreciate in theory what they did with the mid-game twist of, oh, now you're playing as Abby and we're taking you back and we're showing you her journey into the encounter with Ellie that takes place halfway through the game. I think that kind of ruins some of the pacing of the journey. I think in terms of what that does for narrative and what that does for framing and the both sides of, hey, this is what this crew is
The
doing,
both sidesism.
the both sidesism of the Last of Us Part 2, right? I think it's clever and a good idea and it's good in theory, but I think in practice that then takes some of the momentum of what's happening in the story out of it. There's also just a lot happening in The Last of Us Part 2, between what's happening with the different parties, between the amount of characters that are introduced in Part 2 compared to Part 1, between like keeping track of what's going on with individual characters, right? Abby and her relationship with the guy that she's into, the other character who's in that trio who's pregnant by that same guy,
Mel.
right? Mel coming back over to Ellie's camp, and Dina and what's going on with Dina and how she's also like exes with this guy, and like there's a lot of connecting stuff, which I think grants a lot of like I guess vastness to what this community is, and how much bigger this universe is than I think what it seems in Last of Us Part 1. But Last of Us Part 1 has something that I love from God of War 2018 also, which is, hey, what is the focus? What is the aim of the story, right? And how can we tell a story that's beautiful based on the central mission, right? In God of War, it is, cool, let's have Kratos and Atreus go up this
Son of a
mountain.
bitch, don't start this. Don't put it in our heads.
I was just gonna leave it there, but I have to let people know I do know his name is pronounced Atreus. Let's have this father-son duo go up this mountain and spread his mother's ashes, right? And that gives birth to a wideness of different scenarios, different happenings and characters and all these things that happen in the story. But the story at its core is this straight up, straightforward journey that I think allows everything else to shine because they keep it simple. Last of Us does the same thing with Joel and Ellie, which is, Joel is a man who's traumatized by what went down and what went down with his daughter and what went down with the world. He is a man who's disconnected. He's a man who is downtrodden and sad, and he's a man who's turned off his emotions. Let's introduce this girl, Ellie, who he's basically forced to take across America because she is immune and might be the cure to America. Let's have it be this journey. And I think through that, they're able to do so much with it and find the different scenarios they can put these characters in to strengthen that relationship. And I think that character story between these two characters, for me, lends to a better journey than what I got out of The Last of Us Part 2.
Dan likes everything, doesn't like your opinion, Blessing. Dan wrote in to vote for The Last of Us Part 2. As great as Last of Us 1 is, it feels a lot more like a by-the-numbers zombie story, or like you're playing The Road. It's more familiar. Last of Us Part 2 not only shifts the narrative in ways you cannot predict, but the gameplay as well. Not only switching characters, but dropping an open world section in the middle, adding boat sections, the farm, etc. I think a lot of people going in thought they knew how they're going to feel about The Last of Us Part 2's journey, especially after the opening sections. And by the end, it's completely turned on its head with who you sympathize with, who's the villain, etc. And I think that's such an interesting wrinkle to it, where knee-jerk, clear your head. And when we were talking about this and debating topics and when I was trying to formulate arguments and stuff, I think when I initially think of the journey, I am thinking of the literal journey across the United States, right, for Joel and Ellie. And for me, I was like, I like the fact that it is point A to point B and all the shenanigans we get to on the way. And I appreciated that being the thing and where we went through and yada, yada, yada. But then I went back today, because obviously just coming off of playing part 1, I jumped in and was scrubbing through a full playthrough, no commentary on YouTube of Last of Us Part 2. And it's just that fucking thing of being able to jump in that way, especially, I platinum Last of Us Part 2 at review season, but be able to jump in there and, watch Joel's death, watch the aftermath of that in the town with Ellie and Dina, jump far enough ahead to see, Ellie and Dina, living the happy life with JJ, the baby or whatever, to see, Ellie throw all that away, to then go to Santa Barbara, to then, get her off the cross and fight her in the water and then go back to the thing and try to play Future Days again and I'm like, fuck, dude, like it might be the literal journey across the United States I like more. But I think the journey you are taking on as a player is so much better in Last of Us Part 2. And it's not to shit talk Last of Us Part 1, which I think is a 5 out of 5, a 10 out of 10, whatever you want to say. It's a masterpiece. Like, I remember when we finished finishing Last of Us Part 1 way back in the day, 2013, when I was 10 years old, and how I felt watching those credits. And then I definitely remember finishing Last of Us Part 2 and pouring a bourbon and calling one of my friends, Scott, who used to work at Naughty Dog, and just talking to him about like, oh, and just like, this, that, mom, and like, and I remember in the review, which I stand by, right? I think it like transcends games. Like, I think it does so much Last of Us Part 2. And I do think that the journey you are taking on as a player is better in Last of Us Part 2, even if I think I appreciate the simplicity of the journey in Last of Us Part 1 quite a bit. Janet, what about you?
I'm the same as Greg, which hopefully we'll get some more varying flavors between me and Greg during this
there was
episode.
Something,
I don't know.
I'll have to pull up your tweet, but there was something you tweeted today about the thing, and I was like, I didn't feel that exact way about it. So we have some differences.
I think there'll be enough differences to warrant my camera being on. But yeah, I feel the same, and I actually went back and forth. I like that I got to go last too. I got to soak in kind of your guys' commentary, because I feel the same as you do, Greg. Like, The Last of Us Part 1, in a way, I feel like is a more enjoyable journey to like go on over and over again, because it's so familiar, not just and obviously part of that is the fact that we've gotten to do it a lot more. Even myself, who's only played through the game once, I've dug into the beginning a lot. I've talked about it a lot. I've replayed the beginning section a lot. I did again here with the remake. There's like a comfort, a simplicity, and nostalgia, and a great packaging. But again, I think that's now dipping into pacing, which I'll talk about when we talk about pacing. To Last of Us 1. But yeah, the journey of Last of Us 2 is better in that it's bizarre. Like, in its flaws are what give it its glory. And I think a lot of games and a lot of sequels dip into that a bit, which I think is what makes them so fun and interesting, where it's like, how do we do this better or different? And some of those things were successful and some weren't. But The Last of Us 2, I think of like, there's so many more high points in that journey and exciting and vivid memories I have from that game. And when I try to think of the same things from Last of Us 1, sometimes they hit pretty hard and sometimes they don't hit as hard as I remember. Like even something like, oh, the gym with the bloater. I'm like, I remember being like, oh my God, the gym with the bloater. And then when I did it, I was like, I mean, this took like 2 seconds. All right, whatever. There's still a lot of fun, like high moments in Last of Us 1. You know, I just did the part where, okay, I'm climbing up the thing and then they're drowning Joel and then like Ellie pops up. Like that still hits. But at the same time, I have so many more from Last of Us 2. The like, you know, Ellie v. Abby and, you know, Abby's just beating the shit out of Ellie. And it's just so like vivid and messed up and like mixing it with the gameplay so well. And then they go on so many like tangents and trajectories. Like the journey is a more exciting one, even though it is messier in more ways than one. But I do think I enjoy the journey is more exciting. I do think Last of Us Part 1, it is a very, they're both run-of-the-mill in different ways because I think they both are very tropey. But Last of Us 1 is so much more easily digestible, and I think it makes for like a less thrilling journey, but maybe a more fun ride.
I think
that's good.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. But I think for me also, the messiness of Last of Us Part 2 is where the journey loses me a little bit, right? Because it's not only just the fact that there is more going on. I do think that the things that do go on in Last of Us Part 2 take me on those ups and downs in ways that I feel like aren't always justified or landed on in ways that I would have preferred. Where Last of Us 1, that's a brutal world. That's a gory world, right? It's the same world from Last of Us Part 2 technically, but I do think that they use a lot of stuff sparingly when it comes to the brutality of that world, where I heavily remember the Frank scene, right? Where you are hanging out in Billstown, you're on the journey with Bill, Bill's an asshole, all that stuff. But you get into the house where Frank is hung and like he's committed suicide, right? And it's like, ah, shit, right? When I was right before the show, I was like scrubbing through scenes of The Last of Us Part 2 to kind of like reminding myself what gameplay looked like, what characters looked like, all this stuff. And as I was scrubbing through a video that was like the first hour of gameplay, multiple times I was like, oh man, there's a guy hanging here. Oh man, this guy getting fucking murdered here. This thing's happening. This thing's happening. Last week, before our conversation with Sancho West on the show, I did a similar thing where I found a YouTube video that was, here's the whole story of The Last of Us Part 2 in 15 minutes, just so I can refresh myself on the things that go on in it. And there's so many different scenes where I was like, oh yeah, this brutal thing happened, and then this brutal thing happened, and then Yara gets her wings clipped, and then this character who's pregnant gets fucking killed, and then Ellie gets her fingers bit off, and like I'm like, dude, do we really need all of this? Like it and
more
more gore. Like playing through Last of Us Part 1 for me reinstated a lot of the humanity out of that I appreciated, I think, out of The Last of Us, that, you know, not taking away from Last of Us Part 2 for being violent or being gory or being over excessive or some of that stuff, but I think for me Last of Us comes at it with a bit more of a fine-tooth comb and goes, hey, let's be a little bit more, I guess, like picky with the ways in which we depict the brutality of the world. Whereas Last of Us Part 2 lets it all hang.
Here's
really
my thing.
quick.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, because I want to jump on that point that you had.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah, yeah, that is a fair point. But you let me go, so here we are. But bless you mentioning like the humanity of Last of Us 1. I mean, I got to point to Natalie Flores' review of The Last of Us 2, which is The Last of Us 2 Let's Love In, that she wrote for, I want to say, Paste. And I think it's so easy to think about all those brutal scenes in Last of Us 2, and they do very much underscore the journey. But I think so often in that critical conversation, we forget the beautiful, touching moments of Last of Us 2. I mean, the museum scene, that's a better part of any. I feel like it wins the journey alone for that scene. I was thinking of that scene while playing like Last of Us 1, and, you know, especially thinking of like Ellie and like when she learns to whistle and talking about learning to swim. Like, I feel like I get more from humanity in The Last of Us 2. And part of that is more brutality, but part of that is also the love and the pain and the ways that love can twist and torture us in more ways than one. I think it hits, 100%. It plays in more notes, and it is louder and a little more abrasive in some parts. But I think like just that scene alone, like I had to point out, because I think it's one of the most beautiful, touching, moving moments in the and then when you see the Fireflies thing, it says liars, like, oh god, it's so good. Better journey.
Even, I mean, just the quiet moments, right, of like, you know, when Joel plays Future Days for her, and like teaches her the guitar, right? And let alone the narrative backbone that song Future Days is, and the way they use it, both the front, the middle, and the end. Like there's so much there. And like for me, that's what I think is a big journey conversation, big game conversation too, though, is that The Last of Us Part 2, and again, this is never taking a shot, Last of Us Part 1, again, I think is more than a video game. And I think that's because it is so well-rounded makes it sound tidier than I mean, but it's so large, like you're saying, Janet, where there's so much happening with these characters and these relationships and these emotions that make them so much more real in a way they weren't real in The Last of Us Part 1. Because what I would argue, Bless, is I understand what you're saying with the, Frank's lover hanging there, right? And like then there's way more brutality in Last of Us Part 2. In the conversation leading up to Last of Us Part 1, the remake that's out this Friday, #game provided by PlayStation, 5 out of 5. The Naughty Dog was saying, like, we were held back with the game before because of the limitations of the technology and da-da-da-da-da. And that's true, obviously, and this is closer to our original vision. I think that they were also held back in what they could do because PlayStation and the technology, sure, but more like PlayStation in the world. Oof, are we ready for a game that's this violent, that's this over the line, that this dark? And then Last of Us hit so hard and was so popular that I think the second time around they're like, hands off the wheel, you're allowed to, because I know you want to argue everything I'm saying, and I love it, but because the world of Last of Us Part 1 is the world of Last of Us Part 2, and the Last of Us Part 1 is it as dirty and dark a place, you just don't know it. You have to think about it more, right? Because it is the fact that in the very beginning, Joel and Tess kill the guy, right, that sold their guns. It is the fact that when Joel, and Ellie drive into that ambush, and he's like, he's not even hurt. And then at the end, she's like, how did you know? I've been on both sides of it. It is the fact of popping the dude's kneecap off at the end and then, murdering the doctor. The game does a great job, Last of Us Part 1, of not putting it in your face. Hey, Joel's a bad guy, and I don't even my usual argument here. Joel has done bad things. This is gray. Good and bad don't exist, blah, blah, blah. But like Joel has been a marauder and killed people and done things that he's been, needed to survive or whatever. That's there, but it's an undercurrent to everything that's held. I think that was both maybe a bit of the story, but also just the way of what they could do at the time with pushing envelopes. I think Last of Us Part 2 is them. Really, this is what our world looks like. You just didn't know it.
See, I hear you. I think I disagree just in terms of Last of Us not being able to, not having either the freedom or the ability to do what they wanted to do with it. Because I think what Last of Us Part 1 does so well is hey, you don't have to show everything, right? Imply what you want to imply. People are smart enough to kind of understand what this world is. And that build up to having that scene where it is, the Marauders getting the jump on Joel and Ellie, and Joel going, I guess Joel later on saying, I've been on both sides. That's how I knew. That then evolving into what we get in the winter chapter of Joel interviewing both people and going, show me where she is.
I believed him.
Yeah, like I believed it, and then killing both people, kind of in cold blood, right? But at that point, as the player, you're like, no, I get where he's coming from, because these guys are fucking shitty.
As a player, you're cheering them on, right? Like you've been ambushed by this, and they've taken Ellie. You're like, let's fucking do this.
And it's such a good build up into the final chapter where it is Joel now going back and saving Ellie and having these conflicting feelings as a player of, okay, he's saving this girl who, is the savior of humanity, but also is being murdered against her will. And it also kind of evokes Joel's relationship with his daughter and like is reigniting those feelings for Joel. And now Joel cares for this girl and doesn't want to see this girl die, right? But he is playing this villain role in damning humanity, right? Taking that choice out of both the people that were already her caregivers and also the girl herself. Right? Like Joel evolves into the villain, and we see it happen, and we see it happen subtly, where I think Last of Us Part 2 gets into the thing where I think they do show too much. I liked having those moments of inferring like, okay, this world is brutal, and in points to Last of Us 1, they show us why. Like they remind us why. Oh yeah, okay, getting into the winter chapter and finding I forget the name of the dude, but the shitty dude who kidnaps Ellie. Finding David, and getting that back and forth. It's like, oh yeah, this world is brutal. And I think in those reminders, it works. In Last of Us Part 2, where it feels like every other scene, it is show them, right? Like show them something brutal, give them something to really identify with emotionally. Now show them something else brutal. Now show them Joel playing a guitar. Now show them the museum scene. Like every moment feels so emotionally draining in Last of Us Part 2. And I think a lot of time they earn it, right? Like I don't want to just sit here and dunk on Last of Us Part 2 because I also really love The Last of Us Part 2.
Just like you love Miles Morales.
Just how I love Miles Morales. But I do think that it could have used more restraint in a lot of places. And I think it is in that freedom of, hey, we have the technology, we have the freedom as Naughty Dog, let's do everything we want to do, in which I think the game starts to lose itself a little bit. And one more thing I want to say about the journey in Last of Us Part 2 is that I also didn't love how that journey ended. Like Last of Us Part 2 is a game that I don't know if I'll ever replay.
Now you say you don't like how the journey ended. Do you mean that like you didn't like where it was like personally, or did you not? Because like Jake Stepp in the chat right now, right, live on patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames says Part 2 is just such a heavy game. I have legitimately never had another game really make me feel the way it did. By the end, I just felt so bad about Ellie and Abby. Like, I don't enjoy the end of The Last of Us Part 2. I find it so heartbreaking and so sad and so bittersweet, but I like it because of that. You know what I mean?
By the ending, do you mean Santa Barbara, or do you mean like the literal ending, or do you mean like Ellie and Abby fighting? Because I think those are three different notes of the ending.
Great question.
I mean the final stamp of what The Last of Us Part 2 is trying to say. Because like for Last of Us Part 2, Last of Us Part 2 is a game that is diving into the cyclical nature of violence, right? Like our natural proclivity to fall into violence when I guess when it seems like the only option, or the option that seems best for us because we want to get revenge or whatever the fuck it is, right? Last of Us Part 2 I think has such a damning view of humanity, and by the time I was getting to the final moments of the game, I was just like, I disagree with what this game is trying to say. I think humanity is better than what Last of Us Part 2 thinks humanity is. And of course, this can be a back and forth argument. I think that's part of the beauty of Last of Us Part 2 is that it's art and we can take different things from it. But by the time that game puts its end stamp, it's not just the fact that the ending is sad and I think it makes you feel shitty by the end of it. I think that's fine if that's what the art is. I just don't know if I agree with what the art's saying, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. You're wrong, but it's
I have pacing issues that I'll save for later.
Yeah, well, there's plenty of that stuff coming up. Don't worry about that. So the journey then is going to Last of Us Part 2 with our 2 votes and blessings 1 for 1. So there you go. Now we move to gameplay, which I feel should be the shortest segment because it's Last of Us Part 2 by a country mile, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Blessing, what are you doing? What are you doing, Blessing?
Do we include multiplayer right now? Because like,
if I'm including Part 1 versus Part 2, because Part 1 doesn't have it.
In your face.
Well, Greg at the top of this said if you want to talk about remaster.
That was a trick, and you fell into it. You fell into the trap. It's over.
Because I feel like, you know what you love? Tell me about factions, because I know it means a lot to you. So go ahead.
Factions. I mean, if we're including factions is very good, and I think for me, factions takes the gameplay category above Last of Us 1 above Last of Us Part 2. If we're taking single player, which I think the episode's called Part 1 versus Part 2, so I'm down to make it this latest version for
I think it is devoid of factions in this argument because it is. I think we're comparing the stories and the games and the parts, but I'm down for you to talk about why factions would have pushed the other way if that was it.
Yeah, I mean, factions for me, it was the other half of what made Last of Us originally a 10 out of 10 game for me, where I spent most of my time playing Last of Us, playing factions. I think the modes, I think the Last of Us mechanically, every now and then on the internet, right? Like I'll see people shitting on Last of Us gameplay or going like, "Oh, Naughty Dog games are a movie," or like Naughty Dog games don't have, it's all cinematics, no bite. What up?
Billy voted on patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames for Part 2, and his fucking drive-by slam was no question about this. Part 2 takes the slightly above average gameplay of the first and makes it into something genuinely great.
And I could not disagree more about the Last of Us gameplay. I think Last of Us gameplay is fantastic. I think that's why you have such a fantastic multiplayer mode. And that multiplayer mode, I think, captures a lot of the like survival aspect and the brutality and like the hey, crawl around so they don't see you in listen mode, like that kind of energy that we see in battle royale games today, right? When PUBG first came out, and it is, I'm gonna hide in the shower, I'm gonna craft, I'm gonna find what's at my disposal. That is what the Last of Us 1 multiplayer factions multiplayer evoked in terms of energy and in terms of feel, with also the great mechanics of The Last of Us. I think Last of Us plays supremely well, and the people that are like, the gameplay sucks, completely wrong. That said, if we're going to remove factions from the equation, then yeah, I'm with you guys. That Last of Us Part 2, I think, takes it above and beyond. Everything is just improved there. Beyond.
Okay, good. Well, there you go then. Last of Us Part 2. Congratulations. Now we're into characters, which is another fascinating one. The responses were very interesting on this one of what it was. A lot of people were, Billy wrote in and said, this one is almost tied for me, Matt. For me, this one is complicated. Like everybody jumped in and like you're hemming and hawing on each part of it because I think I'm in the same boat as the people who are conflicted, where it's like Last of Us Part 1. Joel and Ellie, you know, Joel's journey from Sarah to the very end with Ellie, right? Ellie's journey, right, as we learn who she is, like it is such an amazing, fantastic relationship, right? To see bud and bloom and all this stuff. But then you go to Last of Us Part 2, and of course, again, is it a journey you enjoy and a change you enjoy? Like I remember I've talked about it, you know, you're playing this game and Ellie is making every choice. I'm like, oh no, don't do that. Like, oh fuck, don't do that. Oh no, like everything, and then let alone Abby and her motivations. But for me, then it starts dominoing out of the cast around them, right? Because if we want to talk about main characters, can Joel and Ellie be beat? I don't know. Again, it's this hard, what you want, blah blah. But then to go to, oh, we're talking about Mel, we're talking about Owen, we're talking about Manny. Like you start spiraling, Dina, right? You start Lev. Oh my, yeah, like, and that's the thing where it's like. I think I made this comment in the review, but it might have been a different review we were doing of like, I thought the characters around everybody in Last of Us Part 2 were so good that I'd be able to years later sit there and talk about them. And as we're getting ready for this, I was definitely there. And I don't know, like Last of Us has obviously people we've talked about already. You know, we have David, we have Henry and Sam, you have Bill. But again, those people are always such passing glances. Like I would even go to as far as say, you know, Ishmael is more fleshed out than Sam and Henry, right? Like Sam and Henry are brothers.
Is Ishmael like the leader of the wolves, like the black dude that?
No. I'm saying in Part 1, the guy who's notes you find. I know more about him, and I consider him a more three-dimensional character than do Sam and Henry. We're brothers, and we're on the thing, and I'm like, all right, cool, I get it. You know what I mean? Whereas like compare anybody you run into in Last of Us Part 2, I feel like I know infinitely better than I knew Sam and Henry.
I think I'm going Part 1, I think, which maybe this won't age well, I don't know, but I just feel like because since there's less going on, I think it's easier to make a connection with those characters. I think honestly, which I know like people love, oh, I love Ellie and Dina and whatever. Yeah. Honestly, for like banger characters from Part 2, the big standouts are really just Ellie, Abby, Lev. That's kind of it.
Jesse, you don't like Jesse?
I don't really remember a lot about
Jesse
him, to be
was
honest.
my
Like
guy.
everyone was
Jesse
cool.
was so
Like
cool.
I fucked
like
with
Jesse.
everybody, but and even like Tommy was one of my favorites in Last of Us 2. But Tommy, you have in Last of Us 1 also, so I feel like.
But again, he's so much more. We go on this journey and see him get fleshed out here, right? To even where he's just a bitter asshole at the end, being mean to Ellie.
I just feel like my gut says 1, so I'm gonna lean on 1. I think I had the connection I had with someone like Tess was deeper than what I had with what was the other guy's name? Was Jesse? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think I fucked with Tess a lot heavier. Like I think just the casual conversations throughout and just like the way her story arc ended up, like and then with David too, I feel like David is a standout villain in a way that like it's even though there's a lot of kind of Last of Us's thing is there's like Part 2, it's like, oh, everyone but no one's a villain. But I think in that there is the muddiness makes for less memorable independent moments with characters, while like for me I feel like I definitely like I know Bill, I see how stuff goes down, David's really fleshed out to me, Tess is really fleshed out to me, like I am gonna lead on those characters. I think just it's a slimmer, more simplistic cast that they do a little bit more with. Even if like
you think they do more with The Last of Us Part 1 so important characters.
I think more with the characters with what they have. Like I just feel like I get to know them a little bit more and they're a little bit more memorable. Even if like bar for bar the writing is probably like a little bit better in like 2 than it is 1. But yeah, I'm gonna pick that cast personally. I just think it's slimmer, it's easier to like remember and latch onto. So
see, I think it's easier to remember because there are so few of them. But I think I remember, that's why I think it's impressive that I remember so much and so many about Last of Us Part 2 characters. And again, to go back even today and watch Joel's death and like see the way they all interact in that scene again, I was like, all right, this is fucking cool. You know what I mean? Of like the infighting, what's going on and how that'll all develop and go out there. Even like fucking Nora, right? And I see her, I'm like, oh yeah, that's such a cool when she dies and Ellie's like maskless and she's like huffing and puffing in the spores. And I was like, yeah, it's fucking cool shit, dude. I'm voting 2. Bless.
Turns out Isaac is the name of the guy from Last of Us Part 2.
There you go,
I had to look it up. I was like, why did I think it was Ishmael? Because
Jeffrey Wright, right?
Oh yeah, also he was played by Jeffrey Wright. I forgot about that.
So they had Jeffrey Wright for 15 minutes, and they got every 15 minutes they could get out of him in the video.
Yeah, no wonder they didn't flesh that character out. God damn. For me, it's Last of Us Part 2, and I don't think it's that hard for me. I think it's still what Greg's saying a bit in terms of the amount of characters that you care about more deeply. Where for me in The Last of Us 1, I remember a couple years after playing Last of Us 1, I'll listen to podcasts or whatever, and somebody bring up Tess, and I'm like, who the fuck is Tess? I don't remember who Tess is. And I'll go back and I'm like, oh yeah, this girl who died shortly into the game. Yeah, I think for me, when it comes to Last of Us Part 2, the thing I take away the most that I love out of Last of Us Part 2 would be the characters. I think about the scene often of Abby, and I think it's her and Lev might be running away from Ismail, or might be coming fresh off killing Ismail. I forget exact. And also Isaac, sorry, not Ismail.
Atreus.
I don't know. We don't have this problem in Last of Us 1, just gonna say.
Well, that's the one character I was like, they fucked this guy up. But there was the quote from Abby who where she was like, instead of talking to Lev, being like, "You're my people," right? Kind of building up to that identity. Is that your PS3? What is that beeping sound?
That's a space heater.
It's getting cold in there.
Yeah, it's
cold.
cold.
Getting hot in there.
Yeah.
Gotcha. But yeah, building up those characters for me to care about them that much, right? Like the fact that you have that switcheroo halfway through, and it worked for me in terms of making me care about Abby as a character who I was ready to kill, a character who I was ready to fucking murder in cold blood, right? You put me in her shoes and had me go through a story, and I came out of it being like, oh man, Abby might be my favorite character in this video game. I see where she's coming from.
Is that not just Joel and Ellie the remix?
But that's the point, and this is why it's kind of when I think about characters, I'm thinking about character arcs, character journey almost, and that's why the characters and journey are almost the one and the same for me. And that's what I love, is that Abby turns into Joel, the person that she set out to kill at the beginning of her journey. And she turns into Joel where Joel was at the end of The Last of Us Part 1. And Ellie turns into Joel where Joel was in between the events of his daughter dying and the journey that you take in The Last of Us Part 1, right? And I love that they're constantly, even from the beginning of the game to the end of the game, are the inverse of each other, Ellie and Abby. And the amount of character work to go into that's why Last of Us Part 2, I think, is infinitely better with characters, of the amount of character work that you're doing from the beginning of their journey to the end. Part 1 is great. It's fantastic. Again, we have to make these caveats of we're kind of shitting on these games, but they're still fucking masterpieces in their own rights, right? It's a very kind of by the numbers, this hardened, cold, sad dad, one of many from PlayStation's library, right? Going from having his walls built up to tearing them down and opening up, and then, tragically enough, because of that kind of journey, right? He, forsakens the future of humanity by taking away this cure, right? But yeah, I just think the cyclical nature of not just violence, but who we are as people, I think is way more interestingly done in Last of Us Part 2.
I think the one thing that makes it tough for me is out of all of the duos in the games, the Joel and Ellie duo is the most powerful one, and it is the one that works the best for me and has the most impact for me. But I just think the amount of what they do with Last of Us Part 2 at a very high quality supersedes it. When I get into the side character, I love Sam and Henry, and I love I enjoy a lot of the side characters in Last of Us Part 1. Last of Us Part 2, long term, 10 years from now, ask me about the side characters in Last of Us Part 2 versus Part 1. Yeah, I'll be able to name you Owen. I'll be able to name you the multiple pregnant people that got hurt.
Oh my god, yeah, you're right. I forgot there are multiple pregnant people in this game.
Yeah. I feel like, and it is, I mean, they're both great games, so it's same difference, right? But for me, I think a lot of what I feel like you guys are describing is the ways the characters function as pawns for storytelling, which inherently characters are kind of that, because that's how things are constructed. But that, a lot of those arcs and that just speaks to the general, that goes back to journey for me. So that's why I personally think of what cast sticks with me more, which we were kind of arguing that you guys feel like the Last of Us 2 cast hit harder. For me, when I think of Last of Us 2, it's only a couple that really stick with me a lot, and they're both just it's just Joel and Ellie structure, but different.
Abby and Lev don't stick with you in that way?
But that's just Abby and Lev or Joel and Ellie from the first one. So I just feel
gotcha.
Character-wise, I mean, they're great characters in that game, but I feel like I walk away harder with the characters from the first one.
What about the
I walk away
dog?
with
Did
story
the dog
more.
Did the dog not like identify with you?
Bro, I forgot about that dog, to be honest.
Why? You can't forget
Oh,
about
man.
that dog.
Remember
I mean,
when he was in
you
the
forgot about
stadium?
Tess, so we both mistakes were made, right? Like,
Tess is a real person.
Pretty much.
We're not a real
universal.
person, but a video game
Pretty
person.
much universal.
right, a real
was,
video game person.
Last of Us Part 2 on the Patreon stuff. Dan wrote in again and said Last of Us Part 2. Abby is the best character in either game. Putting that out there, right?
That might be true. Yeah, that's probably true.
He goes
be
on to talk
honest.
about, he goes on, Ellie gets so much more development and becomes someone that you have to question whether you support or not. Dina is a great supporting character that I would
Dina.
have loved to see even more of in game. I love what they do with Tommy. I want to love DLC. Basically, anyone that was interesting in The Last of Us Part 1 is more interesting in The Last of Us Part 2.
That's
and
a good
Last of Us
point.
Part 2 adds some legitimately great characters that could stand on their own in separate games.
Remember, was his name Manny?
Yeah.
Remember Manny?
I do remember Manny. I brought him up
I
at the
do.
beginning. Remember he spits on Joy's puta, whatever he says. But he said,
Mhm.
for the
I
record,
remember Manny.
Oh, never
for the
mind.
record,
You
the whole
bitch.
sentence, the whole sentence was in Spanish, not just a word.
What,
always talking
Manny,
about how
who
much we
randomly
know.
speaks in Spanish and is a known womanizer? Yeah, I remember Manny. I remember Manny very vividly.
Goddamn, gotcha, bitch.
Not great.
Maybe that's why
When it's
Bander
Latin
SN
American
picked.
History Month, and I gotta put in my favorite video game character.
Remember the-
I'm gonna put Manny because he's like one of the only people I can list. Okay.
My favorite
So,
person in The Last of Us Part 2 is the girl who
Retweet
plays
me.
Vita.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
Hold on,
I was looking at. Hold on, I have the IMDb
that is a fun
open.
moment.
She's listed as portable gamer girl, which I appreciate.
That's the other thing about Last of Us Part 2. is
Finally,
even
the representation we've been missing. Honestly,
even these NPCs
Someone
that you're
played
You're not
killing.
even a real portable gamer girl.
That's my other favorite characters. Is even these NPCs that you're fucking murdering, like they make you care about them. Oh,
That
you
is
just
a
killed my
good-
friend Roger. Ah, Roger.
you know
no.
what? I
Oh,
actually really
Spike.
like. I like that you bring that up because that's something I hadn't thought about thinking of characters. Characters do go beyond cast. There is, and I do think while there's a lot of that in one, they amplify it in two. So, but also, I gotta give one something because I'm not gonna give one a lot, to be honest. So I'm gonna give characters still.
Wow. Did
I
you know
wonder-
Logic was in Last of Us Part 2?
Logic.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a deal.
I'm on the IMDb and he's credited as
Yeah.
Small Rattler.
Yeah, he played NPCs.
I would have loved to be
That was like a
in
whole
any
thing.
of these games as just like someone that's like, just like
Yeah.
that's why I didn't get hired though, because that's the only
Eliza Wood is a
You
random
just have-
character in God of War 3.
You just have a conversation, Janet.
4 in the laundry room.
It's like one of those things when Abby's walking around the sports stadium, like she passes Manny and Manny's getting yelled. Like Janet's there being like, "But why do you just randomly talk in Spanish?"
It's weird. And to be clear, none of the people you're speaking to know Spanish, though, right? So like, what's going on? Like,
Janet, you said you're not going to give Last of Us Part 1 much.
uh-huh.
Our next topic is pacing.
Mm.
Do you want to go with Part 1 or Part 2?
I do want to go with Part 1. This is the other thing I'm giving Last of Us Part 1. I think it has better pacing in that I can't really imagine someone having a complaint about the pacing. I think when we talk about 1v2, it is a lot about ambition, story, all these other things. But I think the pacing is super well done. I feel very much in the flow of that game. I think I wish they chaptered it maybe more, normal, like we could chapter select it. But, like when you go into the pause, you're saving it. It has this nice cadence of space and time as you move through the game of like, okay, we're in the hotel, we're in the lobby, this is this section. I think it moves like super well. And I think we have a nice back and forth of we're with, a cast. We start out with Tess when we get into main gameplay stuff. We lose Tess. It's just like, I think it ebbs and flows between who we're dealing with the Joel and Ellie storyline. And then also they allow for those moments of separation that I think feel very natural in the game. Well, I think a lot of other games, it does feel like, oh, this is the section where you do this thing. It feels like it fits very well with the story and the progression of those characters. Yeah, I think it's a beautifully paced game. And its tightness is one of the, I think, better qualities of it when you compare the two. It's not messy. I think in that cleanness, there is a little bit of lack of ambition compared to the second one. But yeah, I think it's paced super well.
Lack of ambition.
I wouldn't change anything I think about the pacing. I struggle to think of something I'd change about the pacing.
I'm picking Part 1 for pacing as well, which I don't think surprises many people. I've talked a lot about how playing it for review, feeling I was making great time. I'm like, oh man, I'm fucking killing this thing. And then we let you go, boom. Now it's day one, Seattle Abbey, and I was like, oh. And it was like, back to your point, like this is a big chance, a big swing. It's different. The Janet, like you were talking, like I get that and I appreciate it, and I eventually got on board with it, but it was such a hard. We were I don't know cars. We were in the high gear where you're going really fast on the highway and you dropped it back to first. And it was whiplash of like, fuck, I don't care. It wasn't even, I was never I don't want to be the girl or the woman who murdered Joel. It was more this like, we were to something really interesting. Like, I want to know what the next sentence and statement is. I don't want to play another 8 hours or whatever it was to get back to that point.
Well, I love the unconventional narrative structure of it. That's not actually my beef with the pacing. My beef is that Santa Barbara section. Like, it feels so superfluous, like just in the pacing, because they had such a clean structure of it's narrative A, it's narrative B, and you do know there is going to be that convergence. So I'm not saying that I get that they needed to end it with another chunk, but the way that chunk was, I felt like we invited a whole new like faction. It has like that layer of like slavery, which is a very heavy topic that they don't really examine much at all. Then it's like this Jesus imagery, and then even the ending of the game, like looking back on it now, which I love the way like it ends like from a cinematic perspective, but even that is quite long. It's like, okay, then it's like the fight, and then it's a flashback, then it's the end of the fight, then you're in the house, you walk around in the house, and then you're here, and then you cut again, and then you cut one last time and she's walking in the field, and it's just like it's a lot. You know, it's
all that.
You have a hard time finding your footing in it. If it was a bicycle, I'd be constantly losing my balance on it.
What I liked about it though was like
a little...
every time they'd cut, I was like, oh my God, don't leave it like that. Don't leave it like that. Right. And so like when we get to how sad it is to have, you know, Ellie back to the house, everything's gone. We wander through it. And then you open the door to Ellie's room, right? And all the shit's there. I was like, oh, and then you get the guitar and it cuts to black. And we finally get the conversation of Joel and Ellie on the porch right after the barn hoedown, where they finally have a nice moment. Cause that had been on my mind the entire playthrough of just like, oh my God, like, the final conversation, you know, Joel and Ellie had was like this heated exchange that was like them being super upset with each other. You know what I mean? We already knew, obviously, but by the time you get to every time it seemed a little bit worse. Like they get in the fight in the ballroom, or the dance, and then they find, you know, Ellie had called them out on his shit and found out, and that had fractured their relationship. You're like, oh my God, this is going to end that badly. And they never said I love you. They never knew they cared about each other. And we still don't get the I love you, kiddo kind of hugger at the end, but you get the, I don't know if I can ever forgive
toxic dad.
I don't know if I can forgive you for that, right? But I want to try. Like, and that was enough for me. And see Joel get all choked up and cry a little. I was like, okay, fuck yeah, I can deal with that.
There are definitely some great pacing decisions. I would say they made in part 2. Like, I love that they hold that piece of information, right, Greg, till the very end of the game.
Yeah.
Because you're constantly like, what the fuck, Ellie? Why are you doing this? And then you get that moment of, oh, it's not just because it was her father figure. It's because she was about to have this father figure again that she didn't feel like she really had for the last few years, right? And it's one of those kind of, I go back and forth between the Seattle doing Ellie's thing all in one go, and then doing Abby's thing all in one go. Because, like, for, you know, the last 2 years, I've been talking about, like, I would love a director's cut where you do day one, day 2, day 2, day 3, and then you get more of that natural ramp up to the climax in the altercation between them, right? The one thing is I wonder, because, like, you know, these are people who have been making this game for years and years. It must have been something that they thought about, right? I wonder in that cadence if they felt like they were failing on the character and journey side of getting you from what Blessing talked about earlier, where you start as Abby and you're like, I'm ready to kill this character, but then because you sit with her in one go, by the end of her journey, getting back to the climax, you're like, oh, now I get it. And I do wonder if the back and forth would have disrupted that in a way that wasn't as successful. But I would also agree, though, that I think overall part 1, I think, is a base better. But I think that's also because of, you know, the more simplistic nature of it.
Bless, what about you?
Yeah, for me, pacing is one of my big critiques when it comes to The Last is Part 2 that I think Part 1 absolutely nails. And it kind of goes back to my original point talking about journey, where the journey is so clear in The Last is Part 1. And I think that allows the pacing to flourish a little bit, where every chapter feels necessary. Everything you're doing feels like it's getting you to that destination.
Sure.
Where Last is Part 2, doing the thing, which I think is a bold idea, but and I think it works in a lot of ways, but in terms of pacing, that's kind of where it gets taken out. Is that Abby transition and going into her story. But yeah, like regarding Last is Part 2 as well, and this is going back to a bit of what Janet was talking about in terms of the Santa Barbara chapter. I think pacing better pacing would fix some of my issues as well, as in terms of a lot of the big emotional beats of The Last of Us Part 2, both positive and negative emotion. Because when you get to Santa Barbara, and it is, like Janet said, right? Like, you get there and there's like slavery, there's Jesus imagery. You get to the final moments and it is this skinny version of Abby who's obviously like who's like starving and like all this stuff, right? And like this fucked up version of Ellie. And Last of Us Part 2 for me is kind of like that friend who just emotionally dumps on you all the time. Like, hey, oh man, my boyfriend, me and them are fighting. Oh, here's all my issues. Oh, bro, do you have anything good going on? Do you have anything? Do you have a regular day? For me, it's kind of like that. And I think pacing that stuff out a bit more, or at least a bit more evenly, I think would allow for some of that emotion to digest better for me, where by the time I get to that end of that game, I'm not feeling so deflated and exhausted by a lot of what's happening. So I think that's sort of where Last of Us Part 2 fails in some ways in terms of pacing. But yeah, Last of Us 1, I think nails it. And not only does it nail it in terms of story and progression, but I think in terms of level design as well. I could tell you each of the environments you go through in the Last of Us 1 right now. You know, like as you're going through, right? It is, yeah, like, you know, start off with the suburbs, go to Billstown, go to the sewers, like every area stands distinct enough, and I think stands out enough to where the journey never feels stale, right? You feel like you're getting something new. And as I'm entering new environments, for me in this latest playthrough, I was like, oh yeah, this place isn't that long. Like getting to the sewers, I was like, oh yeah, this isn't gonna take me that long. And as I play through it, it probably took me maybe 30 minutes to an hour, but it felt like 15 minutes, right? For me, that's how The Last of Us does such a good job of making each of its sections stand on its own and shine on its own and not last too long. And so Last of Us 1 would be my pick for pacing.
That's a unanimous one. You love to see it. And it's also Last of Us Part 1's first win.
Yeah.
Journey, gameplay, characters all went too. Pacing goes to Last of Us Part 1, which brings us to the final one, twists. Janet, which game has the best twists?
No, Last of Us Part 2, easy. Yeah. Like, yeah. I mean, again, it's kind of by the nature of this kind of story it's trying to tell, it's inherently gonna win that. Because it's a messier game with so many more layers in having what I'd argue like two story arcs that converge into a single, that they start out converge, then they diverge, and then they converge again, which again, like Last of Us 2 has an unconventional narrative structure in the sense that when you map a conventional narrative structure, it's like, you know, the beginning part, like the beginning action, the rising action, the climax, and the falling action. Like Last of Us 1 is completely that, while Last of Us 2 has like so many weird pieces of that. You know, I think even just like there's so many leaks going into 2 of like a lot of people didn't know that like Joel died in 2 before they played it. Even reviewers sometimes knew that, but speaking to people after the fact, they're like, yeah, like when I had heard that, I was like, I guess I know how the game ends. And then it's like, just kidding, that's like the beginning of the game. Now you're in it, baby. And it's like, oh man, okay, well first we got dead Joel here, and then now I'm Abby, and then Abby has the new version of Ellie, and then there's and again, even for what it's worth, with me not being a big fan of Santa Barbara, that was still yet another twist of like, actually, here's this whole new hellscape that you're being thrown into. Very like, now that I think about it, like, you know, Barrett in the chat had pointed out I'm assuming that was Barrett writing that, the California faction being like the classic evil one to kind of balance out that muddiness is what Barrett pointed out. And it's very much, honestly, what happens in Pulp Fiction, another story that has unconventional narrative structure, where you get to that point with the, you know, bring out the gimp, and it's like, well, obviously this person's just evil, and they're messing with these other two people who are here fighting each other, and you can argue that they each have their own points. Again, they're not doing anything that hasn't been done in other things before, but I think they do masterfully do their twists and their darkness and their crazy stuff like that weird pacing, and the other complaints we may have about Last of Us 2 is what gives it those highs with those twists, with the you never really knew what was going to happen next, because while it does fit into definitely some tropes of storytelling, it is made foreign enough that there are so many surprises and layers to dig into. Love it. Awesome. It wins for that for me.
Patrick agrees with you. He writes into patreon.com/kindafunnygames saying, part 2 for me. Other than Joel turning at the end to kill the Fireflies, part 1 really doesn't rely on twists in the conventional way like part 2 did, I think. With part 1, it's a lot more of, quote, oh, well, this path didn't pan out. Time to try something else, end quote. With part 2, Jesse dying, Tommy turning so cold, finding out who Abby's crew really is when they meet Joel and Tommy, Ellie abandoning Dina and JJ, losing her fingers, losing her ability to ever be able to connect with Joel again through the guitar. A lot of twists and turns in part 2 that ultimately make the story so satisfying. Sure, yeah, he's not even going through all of them, right? And that's where I come down on 2. I think, it's weird because I feel like the twist there, I would say if I'm reaching in Last of Us Part 1, there's 3 twists. And it would be the death of Sarah in the beginning, which if you'd been paying attention to materials ahead of time, you assume she's not going to make it.
Or if you look at the box when you put the disc inside.
Wow, is Sarah dead there? Is she like this?
I mean,
it's her with the fucking bullet.
Like, what do you think? She's Sarah's, she's Ellie's sister.
I will honestly say, and this was way back in the day when I was less in tune with the games and stuff.
Sure.
Like, just remembering the marketing and, like, I think seeing a moment of Sarah in, like, one of the trailers and then seeing Ellie, like, I thought they were the same character, but she had, like, just dyed her hair brown or some shit.
Oh, my God,
and
that's so
I didn't end up playing Last of Us until, I want to say, like, 2015. Sorry.
And back to, like, the typical zombie trope stuff where, like, it's a very tried and true zombie story. Like, I wouldn't have put it past another thing to be that, you, her, and Tommy are leaving, and then it's just you just as Joel wake up and we don't know what happened to Sarah, and that's revealed later in the game, right? I think it was the in your face, you've just started this game, you've been thrown into the fire kind of thing, and she gets shot and dies in your arms. Like that was
also never
that
forget
was a
that
twist in terms of it.
The apocalypse didn't kill Sarah, the government did. Like never forget that.
Anyways, there's that one, and then obviously at the end, the move here of like, you kill the doctor and lie to Ellie. Shit, we got so sidetracked. I forgot the middle one I wanted to toss in.
Maybe just David and seeing what's up with David. I feel like
when Joel gets hurt and you start playing as Ellie. Remember, like when Joel got hurt and then we picked up as Ellie and it was like, is Joel dead? I don't know. And then finally you have that conversation with David and she's like, antibiotics? And you're like, oh my God, Joel's alive. We're going to do it. That was the other one. Those are the quote unquote twists. And some of those are reaches, I think, you know what I mean? And they're more intense moments that are, poignant moments, whatever you want to call them, that hit that way. Whereas, I think Last of Us Part 2, it sucks because obviously we can't review it in a what if thing where it was that, with golf clubs were fucking everywhere on Twitter. It was like, oh, okay, this woman Abby is gonna kill Joel with the golf club. I get it, blah blah. But still, playing as much as we did.
I played.
Oh, you're lucky. Yeah, knowing that and playing it, through it and seeing and stuff like that. Like, I still think that stuff hits in a very interesting way. And again, back to even, the twist of I remember when we, you black out, fade to black and fade back in, and we're at the farmhouse with Dina and the baby, right? And it was like, I was alternating like, I can't believe they're going to end this game happily. And then, of course, I kept alternating like, I can't believe it's going to be happy. And then going, oh, no, it's not going to be happy. Like, Ellie's going to shoot me from over the hill. Like, when we were out in the yard, I was so like waiting for the sniper shot to come in and get it. I had that same exact
feeling. Holy shit.
You're like, they're not going to let us get out of this.
Funny.
And then it keeps going, right? Like, I think Last of Us Part 2 is way more twisty. And I think it works for what it is. Even like, again, the feeling of Last of Us Part 1, it's retrospect, I guess, especially because I just talked about the twist of, is Joel dead? You felt like they were kind of safe, right? Everybody around them was always in danger. Whereas in Last of Us Part 2, I really felt that of like, well, is Dina going to be okay or this? And even when Jesse gets shot in the head, like unceremoniously, right? Like it's just, poof, and he's down and then Tommy's there and is Tommy going to get shot? Did Tommy get shot? This back and forth. Like, I think there was more twist and more unknown drama there. Blessing, do you agree?
Yeah, I agree fully. I think Last of Us Part 2, I would say, not just versus Last of Us Part 1, but I think in general in video games might be the twist king. Like that, there are so many twists in the Last of Us Part 2, and there are very exciting twists that explore what that world is, and like that could be simple as Dina saying, "Oh, I'm pregnant." Like that alone, I remember having that moment going, "Oh shit, I did not see that coming." Oh, and like having the moments of building up and being like, oh, why is she feeling sick? Oh, why is she throwing up? Like, what's going on with Dina? And then like right before she said it, I was like, I wonder if she's pregnant. And then she said she's pregnant, right? Like that right there alone hit me, let alone the Rat King as an enemy that appears
out
of
nowhere.
God,
yes.
The Rat King, lest we forget.
Yeah, long live the Rat King.
Do you guys know why it's called the Rat King? I just learned this over the weekend.
No,
Isn't
I
that
don't.
like a thing with rats? Like if
Yeah.
you get a bunch
They all
of
get
rats
tied
together.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they all fucking. Oh,
I know.
don't
Wait,
like
hold
that.
on. What's going on? We're tying rats
So-
together. and then...
so if like rats if a bunch
Gives
of
me
rats are
chills.
like closely are close together for a long time, their tails can kind of twist together and they kind of like form into one
Form an
in a way. And
amalgamation.
so like that's like the insinuation with the Rat King, right? Is that a bunch of infected were close together and then
Oh.
eventually just kind of morphed into one.
I
which
hate
is
that imagery
awful.
so much.
It's so
That
good.
is terrible.
I was thinking about that again as another big moment where like The Last of Us 1 definitely has some big moments as well that I look forward to like replaying again and again. But I'm like, it's funny because Last of Us 2's moment, like it's so good, but at the same time I do relate to the people who've written in and been like, I don't know if I ever want to play that again. Because I was thinking about the stress that it would be to really play it again. And
very
I'm like,
stressful game.
geez, that's kind of too much. But I remember when we got to that wrecking section and praying that I'm like, make this a cool little chase thing, but we're not going to fight it, are we? And then when we had to, I was like, it's time to
damn.
become a pro gamer here and really
Here we
try to.
go.
And then they had the gall to put like, by the way, there's a collectible right after that. I'm like, just put the coins somewhere else, man. Put them somewhere else.
But yeah, the
It's in the parking
I
garage, by the way.
I think
if you're
the
looking for it.
twist, the twist in The Last of Us Part 2, I think make that game what it is, and I think that's goes back to Greg talking about how this game feels like reading a book to him, right? I think part of that is what makes Last of Us Part 2 so engaging is that moment to moment there is always something pulling your interest that is happening in the story, and it makes you go, huh, I didn't see that coming, or huh, oh man, this is a cool moment, or huh, like there's always even like Lev's backstory as a character, right? Like there are twists in that had me like, oh shoot, all right, this is where they're going with that. Moment to moment, I think there are very interesting things happening that they pepper in constantly that that really engage the player, and I think that comes down to all the twists that happen. Versus, yeah, Last of Us 1 has like a few twists, and I think they're cool twists and powerful twists. But I think overall, Last of Us Part 2 is a game that central theme itself is a twist when you're talking about both Joel dying and then the switch to Abby. And so I gotta give it to Last of Us Part 2 with ease.
So by our rubric here, by a score of 4-1, Last of Us Part 2 beats Last of Us Part 1.
Damn.
Does anyone
Sounds right.
Now that even we've gone through this, we've done the whole facts check. Does anybody want to make an argument that all that said, we must fly in the face of the statistics and say Last of Us Part 1 is a better game?
I think by rubric, because I think I gave more. Like I think I gave 3 out of 5 to Last of Us Part 2. Based
Well,
on
but I was saying, you get voted down. You know what I mean? It's like there's one.
I think even by the other way, it still wins. So
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'm more so saying that like, yeah, by this rubric, I would give it to Last of Us Part 2. By my own rubric of which one I enjoy more and like better and think is better, I'll still go Last of Us Part 1.
Wow.
But yeah,
defying math here.
He hates being objective, you know.
This rubric, I mean, what was this rubric created by a robot that is definitive, or was it created by Greg? Was this rubric created by Greg Miller and Janet Garcia, who already knew they loved The Last of Us Part 2? Think about it, everybody.
Too sweet,
Ruining
Janet.
our one opportunity to do an objective review. Just kidding, that doesn't exist. That's why it was a joke. That doesn't exist. Please stop asking for it because it doesn't exist. Yeah, I mean, I like Last of Us 2 better. I mean, I do think that Last of Us 1 may be more fun to play. Like, I wonder over time, like what my replay, because I actually didn't get the platinum for Last of Us 2 yet, so I'm saving that and gonna do like a replay. And I'm like, I wonder how that is gonna hit, because I do think Last of Us 1, yeah, sure, it's like dark and it is scary, and I do have moments of stress where I'm like, oh my god, I forgot this game is scary. No, thank you. I just want to turn on the generator and like do my thing.
Oh, the
Go
generator
away.
section.
Yeah,
Awful.
which
It's
wasn't
really awful.
too bad. It was the Stalkers before, which Barrett, you had mentioned that in Slack, and I don't know if you brought it up again on the episode.
I brought it up in the review for Gamescast.
They are scarier in this remake. But yeah, I think it's a more fun time, and it's like a calmer, more expected time. So I could see myself playing one more. But it's like the Jack 1, Jack 2 thing. Like, I played Jack 1 a lot, even though I like Jack 2 more. But we'll see.
Fair enough. Ladies and gentlemen, there you go. Your winner is Last of Us Part 2. Congratulations to Naughty Dog. And apologies to Naughty Dog. If you didn't know, ladies and gentlemen, this show is made possible by you and patreon.com/kindafunnygames. Over there, you can get the show ad-free. You can ride to be part of the show. You can be a Patreon producer. You can get the post show we do. You can be watching live like Cameron Kennedy is, Anthony is, and J-Car. However, if you're not any of those people right now or on Patreon later, guess what? That means you have to listen to the ads, and here they are.
This episode is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Using the internet without ExpressVPN is like checking in your baggage at the airport without a lock. You don't know who's looking through all your stuff, finding all of your Nintendo Switches, your PlayStation Vitas, or all the other things that you're hiding in there. When you go online without a VPN, internet service providers, ISPs, can see every single website you visit. They can legally sell this information without your consent. Nobody wants that. That sounds like a bad time for everybody. You can browse more anonymously. It's easy to use and it works on all devices. I love ExpressVPN. It is super simple to use. I feel safe across all of my devices, knowing that whether I'm on my desktop or my mobile phone, people aren't getting in there. I'm safe on the internet, and what I look at, what I browse, that's mine. That's for me to know. Secure your online activity by visiting expressvpn.com/kindafunny today. That's expressvpn.com/kindafunny, and you can get an extra 3 months free. expressvpn.com/kindafunny. Next up, shout out to Chime. Like a cool breeze, Chime is a refreshing way to handle your money. There's no monthly fees, no maintenance fees, and no minimum balance fees. So it's how banking should be done. And when you need access to your money, you can do so fee-free at more than 60,000 in-network ATMs at many locations like most Walgreens or 7-Elevens. You can also send money to anyone, even if they aren't on Chime, fee-free for you and no cash out fees for them. Chime, no monthly fees, no vibe killing fees. Sign up for a Chime checking account. It only takes 2 minutes and it doesn't affect your credit score. You can get started at chime.com/KFgames. That's chime.com/KFgames. Chime is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services provided by and debit card issued by the Bancorp Bank or Stride Bank NA. Members FDIC. Out-of-network ATM withdrawal fees apply except at MoneyPass ATM in a 7-Eleven location and at all Allpoint or Visa Plus Alliance ATM. Other fees such as third-party and cash deposit fees may apply. Chime.com/KFgames.
Blessing, what's happening this week in PlayStation?
I want to start off by asking the question: what do we want out of PlayStation mobile games?
Trophies.
Greg says trophies. Janet, do you have an answer already? Or can I actually
hear
read
what
the
you have to
story,
say.
Greg? I asked I asked this because this last week over on the PlayStation blog, they announced that PlayStation is welcoming Savage Studios into the PlayStation Studios family. This is Herman, the Hot Man, host over at the PlayStation blog. Hello, PlayStation Nation. Today we announced that we have entered into a definitive agreement to acquire Savage Game Studios, a hugely talented team of creatives with many years of experience making some of the most popular mobile games enjoyed by players around the world. Savage Game Studios is joining a newly created PlayStation Studios mobile division, which will operate independently from our console development and focus on innovative, on-the-go experiences based on new and existing PlayStation IP. They're already working on a new unannounced AAA mobile live service action game. It's too early to reveal more, but I'm so excited for when they'll be able to. Janet Garcia, what would you want out of a PlayStation mobile game?
I guess I'd want like a baby version of previous like handheld console experiences, but so thinking of like using that unique hardware to create something that feels fit for that hardware. I guess if I had to think of IP specifically, like what existing IP I'd want to see from it, maybe, I don't know. All I can think now of like how they did Mario Run, like Sackboy Run is inevitably going to come out. And I don't actually think I want that.
We already
Fucking
have
told
Uncharted
you.
Run. Yeah.
And remember, there was
Yeah.
a people were hitting me up. There was a Sackboy mobile game. I'm like, no, I know. I just think that's what they're gonna do again.
Yeah. So I'd want something more, I don't know, like some interesting, creative, funky stuff there. I want Media Molecule to do something with this because I feel like that'd be weird and twisted. Shout out to Keegan Hill in the chat saying Last of Us Mobile Edition. Yeah, like we go to places in real life. There we go. There he's running.
Run,
Sackboy's
Sackboy,
running
run.
and jumping.
Wait, wasn't that the name of the game? Run Sackboy Run?
Yeah, it was.
I forgot about
Rolls
this.
off the
Dude.
tongue. But I
Most
could
people
do that.
right?
I could do
I
that
mean, remember, of
again
course,
if
when
I
you're on the
needed to.
Google Play Store right now, it says PlayStation Mobile Incorporated. Like a lot of people forget that this is just the fucking Matrix reboot. Like we've lived this before. I was in the E3 audience when they announced PlayStation.
Were you
Mobile and how
happy in
excited
this
they were.
timeline?
No, they didn't try
Well,
hard. Nobody
then-
cared.
Oh, wait, you're saying PlayStation was excited. You weren't excited. In the
Oh, I was
audience.
as a
Right.
person, I was happy. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay,
Oh, okay, you were. Okay, that's good. Well,
I'm a happy person
maybe
all the
we
time,
can-
Jane.
maybe we can replicate that with this.
Very aggressive episode.
What about
Greg,
you,
what do you
Boss?
want
What
about PlayStation Mobile? So we just pointed it to 2 different directions.
I know
Greg,
we
you go
did.
first.
Just shout them at the same time. That'll be the best way to get through it.
I think this is going to be different than last time around. I think PlayStation and mobile games have come. I think mobile games have come a long way in terms of what they do, and them being more games than ever rather than gotcha things or trying to take advantage of you or just stupid apps. And I think PlayStation recognizes that. I think the fact that Herman's introducing this, the fact that they're talking about being its own silo in the first party, they're getting teams in like Savage Game that know what they're doing to come in and make these things. All right, cool. Let's go. Let's see. PlayStation. I like that PlayStation tries different things. And sometimes that's successful, like PlayStation VR. Sometimes it's a bit more floundering, like Guns Up and all the incubator they were running out of Sony Santa Monica for some of the weird stuff, and Killstrain, that MOBA thing they wanted to do. But it's cool to see them try, especially when they're, both the market leader right now, and then also they have so much IP that could be something cool. And I do think a PlayStation mobile game could be cool. It's similar to them taking on PC, which of course Herman wrote about in the blog too, because this entire blog had a giant paragraph trying to talk down the fanboys who would inevitably be pissed off about this. But it's that idea of getting them into more places and doing different things. And I would love to see these feel like a PlayStation experience. I would love to see it unified. I made the comment about trophies, but I'm serious. Like, I think it'd be awesome if you had the option, if you wanted to log into your PSN account from this thing and then get those to pop over there and make it really feel like these aren't weird knockoff things you're getting at the dollar store. These are real PlayStation experiences. They are part of the same ecosystem that includes the PlayStation 5, the PlayStation 4, everything on PC, and the movies and the TV shows. And like, PlayStation is a brand bigger than the console underneath your TV. I think that's cool.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a bigger mobile push, like you're talking about, Greg, where even them welcoming them into the PlayStation Studios family, I think is a show of, no, we're taking this seriously. Because I could easily see a PlayStation that is, hey, we're acquiring Savage Studios, but like, they're not PlayStation Studios. They're just, we're our mobile game division. We're just looping them all in there. I think them putting out a whole blog post that is Herman Hulse writing and them talking about, no, they're part of the PlayStation Studios family, I think speaks to it being a bigger initiative, along with what we've talked about before in previous years of like them hiring leads to lead the mobile push for PlayStation. I think this falls in line with, how we talk about PC, how we talk about movies, how we talk about expanding the PlayStation IPs you have, or maybe even using some of the IPs that aren't as active, right? Because like, obviously based on the movies, they're not afraid to reach in there and grab out Gravity Rush or reach in there and grab out Twisted Metal or IPs that would surprise us. I'm curious to see what they do with it. If I had to have my own requests out of what I want out of a PlayStation mobile experience, I think Janet might touch on a little bit of gold in terms of Media Molecule. I think it'd be cool to see some sort of like app for people to make develop their dreams on mobile and maybe like test them out, or maybe use that as like I can play dreams on phone, right?
That'd be
like,
a cool way to do
that
it.
way.
Yeah, try to figure that out.
Yeah, I think there could be something interesting you do there. I'd be down for a Spider-Man mobile game as well. Like something that
you guys are crazy. I mean, that's crazy, but yeah.
I don't know what my pitch for the game would be, but I think that would be something. If you could find a cool concept for a Spider-Man game on mobile, that would be enough for me to actually pick up my phone and play a mobile game, because I'm not a mobile game person at all. But we'll see. Maybe they.
It's
do
just that whole
cool
thing, right? This is a newly created PlayStation Studios mobile division, which will operate independently from our console development and focus on it. So it's like, you're not getting. Well, I guess the Spider-Man IP could go there, but you're not getting it from Insomniac.
Not from Insomniac. No,
you're not getting it probably from Media Molecule. Even that'd be cool if they could. Media Molecule is the kind of bunch of beautiful, amazing weirdos that I could see being like, you know what, we would like to do this. We would like to make a mobile game.
Yeah, but this strikes me the same way that Fire Sprite Studios is working on I was gonna say Call of Duty, the Horizon Call of the Mountain game for VR, right? Like, I would think, Savage Studios is working on the Horizon Call of the Valley game for mobile. Like, I think it's gonna be more of that.
I finally get my farm, my animal farm.
Yeah, you finally get your.
I want
my god, that would be
machine
dope.
farm so bad. Come on, y'all.
That would be great. Animal Crossing, but it's Horizon on mobile.
Yeah, I'll buy it. I'll sell at least probably 2 copies to someone who's following me. Come on.
And Horizon Call of the Valley would actually be a name that works for that. So yeah, make it happen. That's my answer. Actually, give me Animal Crossing Horizon.
Yes.
We did it. We also got PlayStation Plus games for September. They had been announced. And off of this, I want to do a new thing for this. What's the one recommendation each of us have for the month? Of course, PlayStation Plus being announced for this month doesn't only come with just PlayStation Essentials, as they usually do. They're also announcing PlayStation Extra and PlayStation Premium titles. So starting with PlayStation Plus Essential games, on September 6th, you're getting Need for Speed Heat for PS4, Grand Blue Fantasy Versus for PS4, and Toem for PS5. For PlayStation Plus Extra, on September 20th, you're getting Deathloop, Assassin's Creed Origins, Watch Dogs 2, Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, Spiritfarer Farewell Edition, Chicory A Colorful Tale, Monster Energy Supercross, Alex Kidd in Miracle World, Rabbids Invasion, Rayman Legends, and then Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game complete edition. Then for PlayStation Plus Premium, we're getting a bunch of bullshit. What's the one? No, I'm kidding. You're getting Siphon Filter 2, the Sly Collection for PS3, Sly Cooper Thieves in Time for PS3, Bentley's Hack Pack for PS3, and then Toy Story 3 for PSP, and then Kingdom of Paradise for PSP. Greg, I'm gonna start with you. What's your one rec?
The one flash of Toy Story on the screen.
I mean, it's one of those things. We're looking at Toy Story 3 on PSP right here, and it looks pretty good. All right, no, I mean,
it looks like a fun time.
Off the giant list of video games you've dropped here, I gotta go Tome, of course. You know how much I love Tome. I don't think enough people played Tome, and Tome's now on the PlayStation Plus Essential thing. And so it's a great platinum. It's a beautiful game. It's fun to play. Portillo's in it. Oh yeah, Jen worked on the stuff for it, but I hate a lot of their games. Don't even get me started on OFK.
That is true. I'm ready. I'm right there.
Did you see me? I put it in the notes down there. I'm like, I want to talk about Rumbleverse, but if we have a chance.
I will jump on with that if you bring it up.
Cool. Besides that, yeah, Tome.
Janet?
Are we it's just from the entire list or just Essential?
From the entire list.
Okay, well, Tome's already spoken for, but I second Tome. Tome's really fun.
You know what you're going to say.
Oh, yeah, Chicory A Colorful Tale.
There it is.
There you go.
And I'll say
play one of the best games ever, and also because that's also a really good game.
All three of these games are great. Yeah.
But also Rayman Legends, because none of people
Legends
played that.
Yes, Legends and Origins are freaking
supposed
fantastic.
to be one for list. All right, you guys are getting.
Well, I added in Rayman Legends as the number 4. Okay,
that's Barrett's choice. Let's try to stick to the rules. All right, that's why we have stakes. It gives it stakes. The fact that you can only choose one.
Oh, also, can I say something really quick?
Sure.
I was gonna be so hurt if you said no, because I was like, what the fuck do I do now? Okay, I was playing on my PlayStation, as many of us are at many of the times, and I got that little notification. I got the notification. What do y'all think this is? It was, of course, hey, last chance to download your PS Plus games for and you know what? I clicked on it and I downloaded all of them.
You did. Bro.
Even though
and just to be clear, you don't need to download them. You can just add them to your library, and it's fine.
I hit add to library. That's what I meant. Sorry, I misspoke. I hit add to library. Even Yakuza Like a Dragon, which I'm already playing on Xbox, which I don't see myself but I'm like, you know what? I guess my thing's gotten so bloated anyway with this whole PS Plus that I'm like, you know what? I guess it doesn't hurt to add it. I guess it doesn't hurt to add it, So there you go.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to keep that up, but I was like, it reminded me, why not? I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm in between games right now.
What does it hurt to have Yakuza Like a Dragon in your library?
Exactly. It doesn't hurt. So I did claim it. So there you go.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's talk about our PlayStation picks for this week. The drop looks like this. Destroy All Humans 2 Repro came to PS5 on Tuesday, August 30th.
Barrett, do you want the collector's edition? It comes with a statue.
You sure you don't want to hold that for Snowbike Mike?
I can't do this again. I gotta take camera hop off the screen. I can't, Greg.
Okay,
I've had this fucking statue.
It's already on the way, but if you take it to FedEx and pay out of your pocket.
What's the statue look like?
Hold on. I can find a picture. Hold on.
I really
have you heard the story, Janet?
Destroy.
No, I haven't.
So Snowbike Mike is a big Destroy All Humans fan, apparently. Who the fuck knows if that's the case? But he was super excited when they put out the last re-release. Sure. And then they hit us up and they're like, hey, we have the collector's edition that comes with like a whatever. I want to say like a 4-foot statue, but that's insane. It's not that.
No, it's okay, so here it is, and it's 2
ugly
feet.
Ass statue.
It's 2
feet tall statue, yeah. And Mike was like, "I would love that," and I was like, "All right, cool. We'll do an unboxing, so we'll send it to Barrett, and then you can just pick it up from Barrett."
Well,
and so now for 3 years, this thing is sat at Barrett's house.
But I also think it was like. But at the time, Mike wasn't even working for us. Like XCast hadn't even begun yet, even him as a part-timer. So it was like I was the only one who cared about the Destroy All Humans original remake. And so it was that, and then also SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom, where I got 2 of these huge boxes. SpongeBob also came with like 4 or 5 little statues, and I was able to easily kind of like send those off. but this crypto one that I've been saving for Mike because, you know, even before he started working at KF, I was like, yo, I need to get this out of my house. And he was like, I will pick that up one day. I was like, all right, Mike, I'm saving it for you.
One day.
And it is 2 years later, Janet. My wife is still very upset at me that this alien statue is still in our house. Very creepy. Lulu noticed it for the very first time like a month ago.
Oh, no.
And the fear that I saw in this dog I had never seen in my life. And she's not like a huge dog, so she gets scared all the time, but it was like one of those just like what she realized she was looking at. So my wife is now using it as a wig holder because she has like some fun like colored wigs and stuff. So right now Crypto has like a really cute bob cut with rainbow hair. So there you go.
Can I tell you, I did not realize this little guy's name was Crypto until I got a press email a couple months ago, and they're like, Crypto is coming to, and I was like, why the fuck is this PR person sending me stuff about NFTs? I don't care about cryptocurrency. And then I read the email, and I was like, oh, I see. It's the name of the alien.
Yeah.
That's
Crypto's
cool.
monster, yeah.
Crypto's monster. Crypto was
That's funny because Crypto is actually like a clone, and your boss is the original Crypto, I think.
Oh, I didn't know that. Damn. Look at us.
The lore.
Learning
Secretly
Destroy
have
All
the deep
Humans.
cut.
The
lore.
lore of Destroy All Humans.
Wow, holy shit. We also got Inscription for PS5 and PS4. That's coming Tuesday, August 30th. That's one that I want to get back to. I'm so ashamed that I never played more Inscription because it is completely my type of game, but I fell off for whatever reason. I don't think I'm going to hop back on PlayStation. I think I will pick up my Steam Deck and just continue there because I have my save on PC. But Inscription, if you're on PlayStation, haven't checked it out yet, it's one that you should probably check out. It won a lot of awards from like GDC Indie Awards and other stuff as well. So pay attention to that one. We got TMNT, the Cowabunga collection for PS5 and PS4 on Tuesday, August 30th. Tinykin for PS4, that came out Tuesday, August 30th. I think Jana's going to talk about that in a second. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, All-Star Battle R comes out on PlayStation 5 and PS4 on Friday, September 2nd. That is a JoJo's fighting game that I actually got to check out over at Summer Game Fest as a preview. And it seemed pretty fun. It seemed pretty all right. If you're somebody who likes games like Dragon Ball Z Budokai or like those anime fighting games, this one's a 2D one, but you can kind of shift around in 3D space like Budokai. Pay attention to it, possibly. We got Lego Brawls for PS5 and PS4. That's coming Friday, September 2nd. That's another one we played at Summer Game Fest.
I was going to say, how did that one strike you from Summer Game Fest Plus when we played that
The
thing?
Summer Game Fest bangers.
I don't know if I would call
This
Lego
is
Brawls
not a banger. This is not a banger. This is not a bopper. This is not something you need to pay attention to, probably.
Yeah, no, you can probably skip on Lego Brawls. But one that you maybe could skip, could not skip, depending on how you feel. Last is Part 1. That comes out PS5 on Friday, September 2nd. Janet, what'd you pick to play on PlayStation this week?
I'm playing Tinykin. Now, admittedly, I'm technically playing on the Nintendo Switch, but it's on PlayStation, so I have it on here. I know.
Get the fuck out of here.
Also, because y'all have no place to get this information at KindaFunny, because KindaFunny hates Nintendo, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or the other way around, I don't know. But it runs fine on Switch, so I think so far I've heard it runs pretty good everywhere. It's also on Game Pass, which we don't talk about here because that's not PlayStation.
Yeah, that's true.
But I will say I
We
kind
bring
of
up
wish
Game
I
Pass
was.
every episode.
I wish I was playing on PlayStation because I want these trophies. I'm not sure if this has a plat. If it does, I bet it's awesome to get because this game's fantastic. It is not like necessarily reinventing the wheel. It's very much a Pikmin style, Chibi Robo-esque in the sense that you're.
Platinum confirmed.
Oh my god! If we get code for PlayStation, let me know. I'll switch right now. I'm only an hour in on Switch. I am really enjoying this. What I really love about it is you're moving around a regular kind of house, and just exploring and finding these little creatures called Tinykin, and they can be used to carry things and open up things for you. And it's just so loving and cute. It has if you're looking at the video version, you can see that it has this really fun cartoony art style. The main character kind of moves in a Paper Mario-esque kind of 2D moving through 3D space type of look. And what I love about it is it's just so fun and playful. The exploration, the cadence of exploration is so natural. I love just digging into what's going on in the world, and I conveniently will, stumble across, here's a button I can pick up. And then later I'll talk to an NPC who's like, we're missing the button for this TV. I'm like, great, already got it. Or I can work the other way, talk to people, and then go out on intentional quests.
look for that stuff,
you can skateboard on a small bar of soap in this game.
That sounds cool.
I
Hell yeah.
am
Love
absolutely loving it. And the sound design's superb too. I don't know who did the sound design work on it, but it's such a good use of it has that good pickup sound, you know, when you're like in a little adventure game and it sounds super satisfying. And then popping the stuff that the little tinykin are in is like the right kind of cartoony gross. And a special shout out to the fact that when you do stuff in the game, like you can do stuff like target a cup and like move the cup to make like the ruler fall down. And when you do something like that, all the tinykin go, yay! And it's so cute. It's like, this is just like a fun ass enjoyable game. It's some of my favorite time I think I've spent in a game in a while. Not to say that I haven't played quote unquote better games than Tinykin recently, but it's just one of those where it's like they did a good job, they were detailed, they were thorough, and I'm having fun, and I'm like, the hours are melting away while playing Tinykin. I'm only like an hour or so into it, but I'm absolutely loving it. So yeah, go play it.
Do you have any idea how long it is?
I believe I had to do a quick Google around some reviews, and I believe one of the reviews said it's about 6 hours.
Okay.
Oh.
It's kind of where they put it at.
Oh, damn, you just sold me.
And I was saying,
Plus or minus for completionism.
I think Andy was streaming it yesterday or something like that.
Yeah, that's
By the
right.
time we got to the Gamescast recording, he was like, I just finished it. So he did it pretty
Damn.
quickly as well, I think. Or maybe I misheard him, but like when he said that, I was like, oh, so that's not a super long game.
Yeah, I'm
so.
gonna boot that. I was gonna turn this into a conversation of, listen, we can just all start a pact right now that we don't have to replay God of War because
No,
I want to
do
play.
it.
Tinykin.
Why are you
It's
trying to
such
get
a
out of
fun
the
time.
Listen, we all
I
have
gotta
other
do
things to
it.
play, but come on, don't you want to be
mean,
ready?
what else is there to- it's
you don't even know
September.
you don't even know Atreus' name. So, I mean,
October
you're
is
I will
when it's
say-
gonna get
You
sweaty
mean
and
Atreus?
crazy, you know?
It is. Well, let me go pull up my Google.
I've only been
summer
able to
games
do
calendar,
so.
whatever
I
it's
only
called.
did that 1 hour of Tinykin, and then I know it's going to stretch longer for me because I'm really just enjoying like hanging out. Like I'm not in a rush to like let me check this objective, let me like get this done because it's just super fun. Since I do have it on Switch, I probably will go and just play it on the plane, which is gonna be tough because you know I love to sleep on the airplane. But on the flight to Seattle is only like 2 hours. I think I'm just going to use that as my Tinykin time.
I do
But
have
it's awesome.
breaking news that I'm sure everybody who's listened to the show for a long time knows. Blessing Adeoye doesn't know shit. Andy says no, he has not beaten Tinykin.
You mean
he only
Barrett?
played
What?
Oh.
Bear's the one that said
2.5.
it.
No, it was you, Blessing. It was you.
No,
yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry you said it was.
No, I'll own up to that. It was me. But I also
Damn it, Barrett, let's get him.
I did hear Andy say word for word. I just finished Tinykin right before we started Gamescast.
He must have meant he just stopped playing. He did 2.5
finished
levels
the
yesterday.
Oh,
Andy's
okay.
official
Gotcha.
review as of now is it's fun and very good. So there you go. That's all I
Okay,
need to know.
cool.
Oh, I'll shoot Barrett some credit here. September isn't that busy. I thought I was busier,
Yeah,
but like
exactly,
I'm looking
man.
through.
It's the
Splatoon
perfect. We
3.
accidentally picked the perfect month to replay God of War.
We're the best guys.
I will say it might be
the
even
greatest.
shorter than the 6 because, and this is where I got the length from. Destructoid's review said not too long, not too short. If you're looking to do all the main stuff, expect a pretty methodical 6 hours. So I'm guessing that means you can
Okay.
finish it faster.
I love
even
that.
than the 6. But yeah, it's great. Anyway,
Because the
I'll
art
just go
style looks
play it.
cool as hell too. This is one that I discovered because Shuhei Yoshida tweeted about it probably a few weeks ago, maybe months ago, and I was like, "Oh, what is this cool looking game?" The art
What's
style
this
looks
all
really
about
fun.
here?
What's this all about here? And so I'm gonna fit this into my September because
Yeah,
yeah,
you
right
should.
now
Let me know what you
September
think.
is what Melly Hellsinger, which I'm definitely gonna play. But that's coming out
Ooh.
September 15th. There's a game called Melatonin that I'm actually pretty excited for. That's like a cool little
puts you to
rhythm
sleep.
game. Puts you to sleep. But that's not gonna be long. And then Return to Monkey Island, which who knows when we're gonna play that.
And it didn't the like collection just have like a sale or something? I kind of want to like go through the Monkey Island games.
Yeah.
Also,
I want to save that
You
for
want
the
to monkey
stream,
around?
though.
I do want to monkey
wanna
around.
monkey
I
around.
also want to follow up.
Me
on
and
the-
Barrett love the monkey games.
Yeah, the crypto statue. It wasn't just the statue; it was also a backpack as well. And so
fact that
that's
there's-
another thing that's also in our house that my wife.
Oh,
is
they
very
look like
upset
little
at me at.
homies.
They
Yeah,
do look like
you
your
guys
homies.
gotta look at the video version because when you see the one, it's one thing, but then when you see
His
the
bro.
pal hanging out, it hits different. You can't separate them either. They're a package deal.
For what I picked to play on PlayStation this week, I'll let you guys choose what you want me to talk about. I
Ooh.
can talk about Guilty Gear Strive. I can talk about Destiny 2. I can talk about Tony Hawk's Underground 2.
Oh, man.
Or I can talk about a game that's not on PlayStation called Immortality.
Wish it was
I
on
guess.
PlayStation.
Yeah,
wish
we
it
gotta do
was.
PlayStation.
That'll
I
be
think,
my PSP port
I
software
guess
to
Destiny
PlayStation.
2, because on your Instagram stories, I saw you put up a picture of Destiny 2, and you're like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So I want to hear about that.
Yeah, I would say Destiny 2 as well.
So I picked up Destiny 2 because of the new announcements. They had a big showcase talking about what's coming up for Destiny 2. And one of the things they showed was, I forget what they called it, but like it was a trailer for the new thing coming out next year that looks very like neon and cyberpunky and looks dope as hell, honestly, the new expansion that's coming up. that was a reminder of, oh yeah, I had fun playing Destiny 2 when that first came out, right? I played so much Destiny 2 that first
Oh yes,
month.
I enjoyed this. I remember.
I enjoyed this video game, I remember, and I twiddled my mustache. And so I downloaded Destiny 2, and I've been trying to convince all my friends to hop into Destiny 2 with me. I was able to convince my friend Yami. She downloaded it, and we played quite a bit. I probably played maybe 4-ish hours, maybe 5 hours. Yeah, I played. I started off playing actually with my friend Kayla, who's a big Destiny fan. And I hit her up because I was like, okay, you're gonna be the person that teaches me how the fuck I get into this thing. And so she started me off with the Beyond. No, was it Beyond Light? It was one of the campaigns that she wanted to run me through so I can get a special ability. It was like a stasis ability that people go crazy over. But then after we played, she was like, actually, fuck this. This campaign it's fine. Get into the Witch Queen, which is the latest one that they've been offering for free since the showcase that might be up now. And so I hit up Yami. We started playing Witch Queen earlier this week. And honestly, Destiny 2, that's a game with some fantastic gameplay. I forgot how fun the gunplay is.
Yeah.
I forgot how great the guns are, how engaging the gameplay is. It is such a fun game to play moment to moment. The thing that lost me is just that I've missed out so much on what's happening in Destiny and the Destiny lore. So hopping into the Witch Queen, there are things happening, Greg and Janet. This Savathun's ship came through, and let me tell you,
Hate that.
we had to go into the ship and hold our ground, and I was very
Yeah, you
confused.
did.
I was very confused why we were storming Savathun's ship. I was like, Savathun has done nothing wrong to us. Like, Savathun just showed up, and we're on their ship, murdering all their people, and then fighting Savathun. And the whole time I didn't understand what was happening. Did that mission, and I was kind of like, all right, like the gunplay is great, but I don't know if I have it in me to run through the Witch Queen campaign, especially without the context of somebody who would appreciate it, right? I don't know the lore. I've not kept up. This is being lost on me. I should probably know more before I try to dive deeper into that thing. And so instead,
So now you're watching all these lore videos from Nuva Ring, trying to figure out what's going on in Destiny 2.
I didn't open up Nuva Ringer, sadly. I did look up my trophies though, because I saw the trophy percentage on my account, and I was like, oh, that's pretty high. And then I went and checked, and I was like, oh, I'm 3 trophies away from platinum Destiny. And so I looked and checked what the trophies were, and basically I had to use the 2 other classes and unlock all the subclasses, which might be easy because I feel like in Destiny now they'll bump you forward. So I might, if I unlock those classes, it might automatically unlock that stuff for me. I could be wrong about that, but that doesn't seem like a big deal. The other trophy that
Unlock them, Bless.
No, because guess what? America doesn't give a fuck about trophies.
For it now, Bless. There's no proof.
America doesn't care about trophies. Greg read about it earlier in the week.
I did, yeah.
Only Japan and Europe care. Yeah, we don't make trophies the way that they do in.
We Americans aren't getting platinums like the Europeans. The Europeans are harder about.
Well, we're
platinums.
gonna have to carry the team then, I guess, over here.
I mean,
ZJ the
Greg,
Ball.
I was gonna say Greg's playing all those ZJ the Ball games, and trying to get us there.
They just don't ZJ ball out here like they should be balling.
But yeah, I did that. And then the one other trophy that would take me to the platinum would be to, oh god, I described it earlier and I still don't know exactly what it is. I'm just gonna open up my PlayStation. I believe I need to finish a Nightfall strike, but it's like the high difficulty Nightfall strike. Which right now, to do that strike, I believe I had to be level 1650, like power level 1650, and I am power level 1300 and something. But also like the soft cap seems to be like 1400. Destiny's weird, man. I don't know numbers. That's been the moral of the story.
That's been the big thing holding you back.
Yeah, it's like I don't know what these numbers mean. There's a soft cap and there's a hard cap. I'm looking at the Destiny trophies right now, and let's see here. Let's see. Acquire each warlock.
While you're there, if you just unlock them, we can see it on PSN profiles. You don't have to work so hard for it.
Here we go. Yeah. Complete a Nightfall strike on Grandmaster difficulty. Which, doing some of the light research, doing some of the light research, it seems like that would take me some time to do.
You can get pulled through. That's what I did, if memory serves, for when I got to platinum.
But I think there's a lot. I don't think I can start the Grandmaster difficulty until I get to a certain level. Because if I could, I would just hit up my
Are you
my
sure?
Because
I doubt that I went through and did.
I'm booting it right now.
You have it for Belly of the Beast, complete a Nightfall Strike on Master difficulty. Then there's the Prestige, complete Nightfall Strike on Grandmaster difficulty.
Yeah. And what I think it is, Greg, is that,
and I unlocked them at the same. Oh, these are my PS5 trophies. Let me get the PS4 trophies.
I think what it is with new seasonal updates for Destiny, I think your light level or power level gets bumped down as they raise the cap. And so I think that's what happened, where if I try to get that trophy month 1 when I was already towards close toward the cap, I probably would have gotten it way easier than now coming back in.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
But yeah, that's the struggle with it right now. But I did hop into Crucible with my friend Yami, and let me tell you, I'm amazing in Crucible. I have such a good time in Crucible. That's where I shine.
Talking their shit over here.
Listen, I was in Crucible. I was fucking people up, dude. I love that mode. I have such fun in Crucible, and it's funny because like talking to Kayla, she's like, Crucible sucks. I don't know if many of the
dude. It was pulling teeth for me. I hated playing Crucible. I got drugged through it for the trophies, and I was happy for it. And then I made the mistake years ago now, probably, of doing a charity thing with somebody. And like, I think it might have been GameSpot or whatever. And it's like, all right, cool, we're gonna play Destiny. I was like, oh, great, no problem. And then I showed up and it was fucking PvP. And I was charity. I did a charity stream with Bungie. So I was just on there just getting fucking destroyed. Like there was like no help. I was just
but for good, you know?
Yeah, whatever. Sure. That really made it a really horrible 4 hours or whatever it was.
Okay, so the Nightfall Grandmaster requires the Witch Queen, which expired because it was free, and now it's not free anymore. So now I'm going to need to get Witch Queen. But it seems like the 1620 power level is recommended. I don't think it's required. So I might be able to call up my boss-ass friends who are Destiny killers and go through it that way to get the platinum. Destiny killers. So that's my Destiny story. But I was having fun in Crucible, even though it might suck for people who actually play Destiny, but I enjoyed it personally.
Blessing for me this week on PlayStation. The stars have aligned. And what happens occasionally, but not often at all, is I have fallen in love with a multiplayer game. And I am playing Rumbleverse exclusively, ladies and gentlemen. It's all I play. I have many review codes stacking up. And I'm like, well, I could do that, or I could play 5 hours of Rumbleverse, and then I play 5 hours of Rumbleverse.
You would stop your vacation in your 2-week vacation to stream Rumbleverse.
That's right. Because that's a vacation to me, getting to come out and stream Rumbleverse, getting to take on Grappital City with the one and only Snowbike Mike. If you're not familiar with Rumbleverse, Grappital City and Rumbleverse become, and I also want to call it Knockout City all the time too. It's complicated over here. 40-person battle royale where it's melee based and it's professional wrestling themed. So you got steel chairs as weapons, you got baseball bats as weapons, you got you learn moves as you play and go through. So you're doing suplexes and diamond cutters and stuff like that, and it's just a ball. I'm having such a great time with it, and I am perpetually second place, which I understand most people are like, oh man, that sucks. And it does suck and it does get to me, but I'm just thrilled to have been able so far to keep up, because I really do feel that lots of multiplayer games you've heard me talk about before, where I play them in pre-release in the comfort of just other press people, and I have a great time, and then it gets released and I play for a while, but then I have to go do a review, and I come back and guess what? I'm complete garbage now because the world's moved on. And so Rumbleverse, I got to play a little bit during my vacation, and then went away for multiple days and came back and had a really rough first night, but committed to greatness. And I've been able to hang in there and be good at the game. And I want you to know real quick, there is no hubris in what I talk about here. I am not a great player at Rumbleverse. I am not an amazing player at Rumbleverse. I am a solid player at Rumbleverse, which is big for me. And the fact that I'm able to be competitive, and there's plenty of matches where I don't come in second, obviously, but lots of times I am, which really feels good as someone who is perpetually bad at multiplayer games like Fortnite, where it's like I'll win on I win a lot now in Fortnite, I feel like, but I think Fortnite's changed a lot from where it used to be, where I was just not getting anything. And so the fact that I'm able to hang in there, Bless and Janet, means something to me. And the fact that right now, I feel it's the kind of funny scale out there in Rumbleverse right now. Mm-hmm. And right now, I am a solid 3. All right. I am right there in the middle. All right. And it means that I have my okay games where I'm like closer to bed.
No, I gotta call that. Was that Greg just having an excuse to flip us off nonchalantly?
What? No.
I was gonna say usually
there's the kind of funny 5-point scale, and I'm dead set in the middle.
And
right
then you flip us off.
Well, I mean, that's how you hold it. That's how you hold it comfortably. You know what I mean?
It was very, yeah.
It felt like an
somewhere with it, man.
Flick off the audience, which I'm right there with you, Greg.
Yeah,
fuck off. Yeah, fuck these guys.
He's like, there's everyone else, then there's me, you know?
Anyways, though, no, stick with me. So there's the okay where it's either sometimes I can be way closer to bad okay, or I can be way closer to great okay. And I feel the great players, I'm on the cusp of that. Again, if I can keep getting to second, eventually we're going to get there where the domino's going to fall and I'm going to start getting a lot of firsts. And then I'll be into that lower level of great. And then, of course, there are the fat fives, the top fives that are just these people who are fighting game experts who come in and they touch you once and you never get your hands back on the stick. They're doing multiple combos. They're juggling you in the air. They're throwing you off walls. Like, I will never be that. So I am happy being a 3. I'm excited to hopefully push it and see if my skills can get me to being a bottom tier of the 4s. But I'm having a great time out there. I'm playing it. And again, I'm not talking shit, and there is no hubris here. But just to drive home my point, it was very fulfilling and comforting to stream with Mike the other day. I guess it was Monday. I popped in and streamed with Mike for a little bit during lunch. And when I got to do solo thing, he was impressed by my skills, and so was Iron Galaxy, the developer, when they popped by.
Heck yeah.
And then, if you want another confidence boost, I am not talking shit, I swear. Again, last night was a whole bunch of matches of me coming in second place, or again, just getting clowned out, yada, yada, yada. And then I was like, oh, you know what? I forgot that we still have, from when we did our activation with them at launch, we still have the ability to do private matches where I can just invite KindaFunny best friends or whoever with a code to come join me, and we can do a private thing rather than you don't get progress. So it's just a way to play with friends or whatever. And I did that last night. And Barrett, I sent you the tweet of it, right? Like, again, I am not talking shit, but I was able to win. I think it was 3 of 4 matches or 4 or 5 matches. I only dropped one to J.A. Styles, which is a great username. But that again, it came down to 1-on-1. He beat me at the end there. But the rest of them I was able to, and it felt so good to have so many KindaFunny fans be like, "Oh man, you actually are good at this game. You're not just talking shit about it. You're actually good at this." And
I don't know. This really seems like you're rubbing it in the face of Mario Rivera. I'm just saying.
Well, of course, him and Ignacio were among those people who every time I eliminated, they tweeted like, "God damn, you are good." Then of course, Sancho West saw it and he was like, "Oh, you're doing private lobbies," and I was already done by that point, and thank God, because Sancho West is the kind of motherfucker that you invite him in there. He's finding me. He's toying with me. He's
That's a
chasing
really
me
good
down.
gift that you put up there on the tweet.
Yeah, he's amazing. Rumbleverse, I'm having such a great time with. I can't believe I like it as much as I do. I can't believe that I'm still this, like, I want to end my workday to go play more of it, which is always such a great feeling for a game you love.
Now I'm doing some calendar gazing, Greg, and I think part of the reason why I've not played more Rumbleverse is that I've not gotten to play it with you guys on stream, because I've not been on streams as often as I have been, because Andy
we call you Review Poppy.
They call me Review Poppy, right? But I'm not Stream Poppy. That's more Mike, Andy, and Nick, and they're trying to hog it all to themselves. Greg, I look on Friday, and we're doing a group stream that's going to include both me and you and others. What are the chances we can like fill some Rumbleverse in there? Because I want to get on the streets.
You get to have the breaking news that I have quite the baby conflict there that I have not figured out, and I will probably not be. If I'm going to be on that stream, baby might be over here, and I'm doing this, and I don't know. I have some bridges to cross before I get there, because our nanny has a conflict that has appeared, and I don't think it's good, but we will see. But if you would be down, we could do like afterwards, or you know what I mean? Like if I came in at the end of the stream, for sure we could do it. And then maybe we just
I don't
hang
have any
out.
plans Friday.
Maybe we just hang out
evening. I'm down to just hang out because I want to play some Rumbleverse, but I don't have anybody to play with.
All right, I'm down. Don't do the thing you always do where you're excited to play a game with somebody and then you're just gonna go home tonight, play with Yami, and then me and Janet never see you again. All right, like I'll play with you.
Do it. All right?
Okay, me and Bless did God, what did we play together? The FIFA? Neon. No, that one game. That one day. It's like
Neon.
Neon White.
It was like neon-y, and you shot.
Arcade-ageddon.
Who could forget? You know.
Oh my! The game that came out literally just last month.
Yeah.
That I've not heard of. I've not heard a peep from it.
That was
it
like
was in beta before then. It was in beta before then.
Okay.
You could play it like starting in February or January.
What a long month that was. But yeah, that was us squatting up for that one iconic evening.
Janet, Barrett, and Blessing, I'm letting you know right now. Sometimes you're going to be contractually obligated, but other times you'll be able to do it just for fun. Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed, October. It's multiplayer. We're playing it. Don't worry. But, again,
don't worry.
Blessing, if you want to just, if you just want to be contractually obligated, that's fine. That's fine. You want to be?
Am I personally going to be contractually obligated? Like,
I'm saying if we put you down for a stream, you're fucking playing this game.
God,
are you wearing a Ghostbusters outfit that I bought
Greg,
you?
What if I'm too busy running the stream? You know, I got to make sure that the stream's
running. But then you have to
running.
dress like Slimer. Then you have to put that Slimer mask on we have that where your face pops out of Slimer's mouth.
It's gonna be the Predator.
That's fine. I can do that. I can do that.
We're all just gonna suffer for the enjoyment of Greg. And you know
what? First off, fuck you. You enjoyed Predator Hunting Grounds. Don't act like
you tell yourself that, Dad.
I don't have to listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. This has been PS I Love You. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been PS I Love You XOXO. We're your PlayStation podcast that comes to you usually every Friday. We juggled the schedule this week because of some commitments, so it's Thursday. Remember, if you ever want to watch us live, record it, you can do that on patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames. Over on patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames, you can get the show ad-free. You can write in to be part of it. You could be a Patreon producer. You could be watching live as we record it. You can get it with the post show we do each and every week. Of course, these benefits would extend to the Gamescast, Xcast. You get a ad-free free Games Daily post shows on Games Daily, Bless You on Gamescast. It's a great time. It's a great deal. So go to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames and kick us a few bucks where you can catch that post show we're about to do. But for now, that's the end of this show for you freeloaders. I was going to say it was free bees, but I was too deep into the sentence. So you're a freeloader. All right, you two people, I hope you enjoy it. Podcast people, enjoy whatever comes next. Enjoy Giant Bomb or whatever you're going to listen to. Mid-Max, have some fun. But until next time, no, it's been our pleasure to serve you.